Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Cloud Native FM and Cloud Therapist YouTube channel. And thank you very much, as always, Richard, alongside me for a final live stream of the year. Richard, we
I
did,
I think
we did,
so.
I think we did 7 of them.
Yes, I think so. I think we've done quite a few for this year, so this will be the last one. We can put our feet up and relax now, Saim, after this one. But
Oh
before we
yes,
do that, we still have quite a lot to go through on this one. So looking forward
100,
to it.
100%, and we really enjoy every piece of it.
Absolutely.
Talking about some of the random news. So, Richard, I will sing a small song here, and then we
Ah,
jump straight to the our announcements.
sure.
1, 2, 3. EC2 lights the night. Servers hum in time. Lambda sparks the code event by event. S3 keeps our memory. CloudFront share the show. EKS on forget roll, container on the go. Dynamo drums the state, Aurora
Hmm,
holds the heart.
sure.
IAM locks the door, while KMS guards every part. CloudWatch feel the heartbeat, SageMaker dream the scheme. Raise your hand, shout it loud, we are building in the cloud supreme. So
Very good.
let's go
That's very
straight to
good.
if you like
I'm
it, that's
impressed. I'm impressed. That's really good.
oh, that's good one. So Richard, we have to go to our some wonderful news one by one. So
We
I'm
do.
sharing a link where we can actually go through some of the major announcement for the today, and I will
Fantastic.
hand it over to you so you can actually walk us through as well. So
Yeah.
let me just share my screen again. 1, 2, and we will start doing the. So, Richard, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see it now. Yeah.
Okay, good. Great one. So wonderful. So, Richard, before we started looking at some of the announcement,
Yeah.
is there any particularly you need to call out at this moment of time?
Well, I thought for me, I think Matt Garman's keynote, the CEO, Matt Garman's keynote presentation was, I think, for the second, maybe if not the third year in a row, was more interesting than Werner Vogel's, the CTO's keynote. I think Werner Vogel's is, if I recall correctly, from last year, and we covered last year as well. Um, the presentation that he did, the keynote that he did, um, was kind of reminiscing. He was kind of going back in time about coding and developers and stuff like that. And again, here he's kind of talking about the Renaissance developer, and it's actually interesting that he's calling it a Renaissance developer because I've been talking about developers kind of being artists, and we can't really apply too much pressure on them with things like platform engineering and stuff like that. Otherwise we kill their innovation and thinking and that kind of out of the box thinking that they have. So it's actually almost interesting, very interesting actually, that we were kind of almost in agreement in terms of what developers are and the kind of people that they are. So that was interesting. But again, I noticed a lot more sort of going back in time from Werner Vogel's, whereas Matt Garman was kind of more forward-looking with the announcements. And I suppose that kind of makes sense in a way. But I would have liked to see a little bit more technology stuff from Werner Vogel's rather than kind of focusing on, he does his video at the beginning. And that was all kind of, time machine and going back in time and stuff like that, which was, I'm not sure that was kind of the best time used up for a keynote, to be honest. I appreciate he kind of likes to make it a little bit more interesting and slightly more witty as well, but I would have preferred a little bit more tech, I think, in the he is the CTO after all. So I kind of would have appreciated a little bit more tech on that. But yeah, Matt Garman, definitely. And we'll go through a little bit more later, and I'll list out a couple of other ones that were ironically interesting as well.
Awesome, 100%. But there's a wonderful article, Richard. If anybody want to walk through, I think it's a very big one. I think I need more than 30 or 1 hour to go through each and every announcement here.
It's
All the
it's
details. It's a very
it's
detailed one.
it's either that or you throw it into something like Note GPT, and Note
Ah,
GPT
yeah.
gives you a really nice summary. So if anybody
Yeah.
wants to check that out, do that, guys.
But it's a very good. I think it's a
Yeah,
good article. Everybody want to start
yeah,
2026. Make sure to read it because they have some very good announcement there as well. But I will go to some of my picks as well, Richard. So one of the thing is really resonated for me being a DevOps engineer is being they started a new class of agents,
yeah,
and I hoping my people can see the right screen. Oh, good. Yes. So this everybody can see the right screen. So they call the frontier agent, Richard, the new
hmm
class of AI agent, and they fall under three categories: Cairo autonomous agent, AWS security agent, and AWS DevOps agent. So those are the recent announcements. I think the Cairo was announced, I think back in 2024. They announced it's a vibe coding IDE or beginning of this year. They are added it right now. They are adding like Terraform modules or polishing it for the more real usage of the vibe coding IDE. I haven't actually testing it out in the real stuff right now, but I heard some very good news about it as well. On the security side, Richard, I've seen this is more of the remediation kind of a thing. Like something has been bad. If you have a cluster running, some namespaces are not present there, and you deploy your code there, namespaces went down, and in the Kubernetes world, let's say something happens, there's a small changes, so you can remediate those with a
yeah,
security agent as well. But the
yeah,
one thing particularly interesting is AWS DevOps agent. So, Richard, did
yeah.
you have any opinion on this thing?
So I think what's happening, and I'll kind of stay overall, not necessarily just on the DevOps agent. AWS, I think last year kind of brought us the tools that we need for for AI and Gen AI and so on. So kind of the coding side, the some of the automation and various other things that they did. I think what they've done this year is they've stepped that up by introducing agents into those capabilities. I think the only thing that we need to be kind of cognizant of is the fact that if we take this, or to the nth degree, if we keep on doing this, we're going to automate so much. There's not going to be any humans needed to, to kind of be in the loop and in these, DevOps pipelines. So although we've kind of had, you've had code generation, for example. So, Bedrock as your sort of playground area. You can pick on any of the models from there, generate code. I saw a really good demo where I think it was last year or the year before, where they dropped, I think it was last year actually, yes, 2024, where they dropped a JPEG of a very simple AWS architecture design, and the tool, or the model rather, recognized what was in the design, and then it was able to generate code from that. And
Introducing AWS.
They introduced the code from one side of the equation, which was cloud formation, I believe, and then they asked the model to translate that to Terraform code. So from a JPEG that actually had the architecture design on it with the with the boxes and the lines going through to form cloud formation code or script, and then translate that or introduce that into Terraform. So, and the model did all of that. So that's kind of fine because the developer's within that loop, and he or she is kind of going through, that those prompts and taking the script from one stage to the next and things like that. But if we add a lot of agents to this, you're not going to need that many developers and people to actually do it, because you're automating it more. So this step I'm still okay with. The agents that they've introduced this time around in reInvent, with the DevOps agent and various other ones, that's fine. But I think we need to kind of be a little bit measured in terms of where is the next step that we're going to take this. What does reInvent next year going to be introducing in this? If it's more agency or towards kind of agentic AI, then you're really going to start looking at humans not being kind of too much in the loop, and therefore you can do more with less resources. And in fact, for this year, a couple of the customers that they wheeled out in Matt Garman's keynote presentation, that's exactly what they said. So there's people are already saying, hey, this used to take us months to do, and hundreds of people. Now it's taking us X amount of weeks and 6 people or something. So we, again, we're seeing that kind of automation, level of automation coming through. So we may need to look at how that's going to work in the future, and what does that mean for all those developers that we have out there. So although one of Vogels was kind of talking about the Renaissance developer, and that's great, but if you guys carry on automating, then we're not going to need that many developers, whether they're Renaissance developers or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. So I think what I will try to see with the difficulty on the agent is a big theme in the AWS. It's been agent in every kind of a direction, but particularly for the infrastructure engineer, particularly incident management and Cairo and DevOps agent. I try to see these agent as some other companies are doing the innovation on top of the AWS services. Like if you use some third party, they have their own autonomous agent as well. So I think for the business side of the thing, I think AWS really want its user to stitch to their services, and they kind of the agents are the first class citizen in the AWS rather than they are available in the elsewhere formula as well. And I think I tend to see analogy here is if I ship something at your home, let's say the box filled of chocolates, and if you see what are those chocolates are actually been not properly packaged, you can trace some sort of scanner and identify it which need to be fixed, and then you ship back to me, and then I fix it and then ship back to you. Then I'm not happy with this agent. I'm literally not happy with this agent. The
Yeah.
only reason I'm will be happy with this agent, if I send back to the bag of chocolates, you trace down what's those are not fully packaged, and then you incidentally solve those.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you should ship back to me, I think there's just identification that we are already aware of it. So I'm hoping they are more autonomous in nature as well. But we have short amount of time, Richard, so we need to move ahead with some other news as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next, I think eh, eh, in my word, I think particularly in the AW, in my word is basically uh, in my word, we need to add some of the Kubernetes detail in the mix as well, because that's where I really love to see what's going through. And I
Yeah.
think, from my perspective, and of some of the news I'm hearing on the AWS side of the things, one thing they added is the MCP server for the IAM policies. That's the good news, Richard,
Mm.
because everybody screwed up with the IAM authentication and authorization. Now they have introduced a new MCP server for IAM policies. So those MCP servers is automated. Like it's automatically assign some IAM policies for you as well. One other thing I've seen, they've added uh, the container image signing, the managed container image signing for the AKS cluster. That's good. Developers are happy with it. Otherwise, previously, they have to do it on their own self as well. And on other news, Richard, which is kind of a money news, Amazon is set to invest $50 billion to expand AI and supercomputing infrastructure for US government agencies. Richard, how much money is given to AI? Why not we
Um,
can
well, we've seen from the recent announcements, right? Everything from Stargate at the beginning of the year to the European Union announcing a 200 billion euro investment as well with uh, at the AI summit in Paris a few months later, to a lot of the um, deals that have been kind of made between Nvidia, OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, AMD, to name a few, and obviously with the hyperscalers kind of doing their own thing as well. So there's a lot of this investment. Now there has been some concern around this in terms of whether this is a bubble that's being sort of caused. But I think just like with the e-commerce and um, the sort of the bubbles that we had in the late 90s and early 2000s, when we were looking at sort of the web bubble and and things like that. If the technology works, that will still continue. People will still want to do it and will still implement it. So even with the e-commerce bubble that we had sort of 20, 30 years ago, people still use that technology regardless. So maybe some companies might go out of business and crash or get acquired or whatever. That's fine. But if the technology is sound, it'll still be used. So I'm not really too concerned with the bubble. These players all have a lot of money available to them, and like I said, I think they're too valuable to go out of business. And if they do, I'm sure somebody's going to sweep in and and acquire them.
Okay, awesome, absolutely. I think so, Richard. We have to go towards some of the guests in a couple of minutes and need their opinion as well. But here we actually share once again a full list of the news here as well. So, like I will include the link in our YouTube chat description so people can know. I know Richard has some very good excitement about this new Amazon Nova too, and we will definitely do some future Nova Forge in particular. So we definitely include some of the news, some of the things in the near future as well. I am actually always kind to align on the AKS Kubernetes part of it because that's my domain where I live on daily basis. So we have some news. They actually introduced some capabilities on EKS like Crow they added, Argo CD added, the management of it. So that's a good news, and a bunch of other news as well.
Yeah, can I
But
just go back? Can I just go back to the beginning? The interesting the theme that they started with was uh, not what if, but why not. So that was the theme that Matt Garman introduced to to his keynotes, and he kind of repeated that as he was making more announcements and ideas, sort of came to them. The other interesting quote from Matt Garman was he said, "It has been an unbelievable year." I agree with that, but not necessarily for the same things that maybe Matt Garman was thinking about. There's certainly a number of issues that have occurred this year, and we're not sort of access media and shills, right? We say it straight on this live stream. So I was extremely disappointed that AWS didn't talk about the outage at all, and we did that. You and I did
that's
we made a bet. We made a bet. I think I said that I would be very surprised if they didn't, and you were kind of saying, I think they're going to skip it. They're not going to do it. So, Saim, you won the bet. I owe you £1 or something. I don't know what it is. I owe you, but I owe you something because you were right. They didn't. As far as I know, they didn't. Nobody mentioned it. So that for me was quite disappointing. I would have, if I was them, I'd have just come out straight and said, "Yeah, we screwed up. This was a major outage," and apologized to customers. And I would have really would have preferred to kind of see that sort of humility, and instead they kind of chose a different path to their approach. We have covered the AWS outage in your Cloud Native Wisdom episode, so we'll maybe drop a link in the comments for that. I've just covered it in the October episode of Cloud State of Play. So go and check that out. That was fresh from today, I believe. When did I release it? Yeah, today. I released it today. So go and check that out on the Cloud Therapist channel. I go into a lot of detail on that with Paul Bevan, my guest. So go and have a look at that. I'll drop the. Let's see if I can drop the link in the description for you guys as well.
So, Richard, good. So now we have some guests arrive, and I will be adding them shortly as well. So we have so much other news to cover as well. But I think,
We have
Richard,
tons. We have tons.
particularly inside of the Kubernetes space, there are some things to consider here as well. But I will stop you here so we can jump straight to our guest who was working on seeing what their ideas was about the stream as well. So 1, 2, 3. Our first guest for the AWS live stream after party. Hello, Guy. You are now live. And
Hi.
Hey,
How are you?
Guy. Good to see you.
My twin from UK. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I get as big as you kind of in the... There you go. That's perfect.
Yeah, well, it depends on the depends on the camera. Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing?
It adds 5 pounds or whatever they say. I mean, it never works for me. Yeah, I know.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Good. Freezing, but yeah. Other than that, good.
Okay.
Awesome, good. So, Guy, can you give us some of the things if your company participated in the AWS reInvent, and start with the infras? If somebody just heard today, give us some of the things about infras in particular, and also some of the things your team is really discovered during the reInvent.
Yeah, so it was a kind of a last minute decision for us to join. And the main reason we came is because Kyndryl told us, come, and we came. And that was a fantastic experience in that aspect, because actually we hit off, we actually started this engagement. It's not a formal engagement yet, but Kyndryl was very interested in what we have. And we talked with multiple people there, including account executives. So and now I'll tell the audience what we do is, so essentially what Infras is an architecture as a service platform where we take the business requirements, the technical spec, or generally speaking, the information we need from the customer, and we create a tailor-made, optimized solution for them. And optimize across performance, cost, availability, security, resilience, deployment complexity, and maintenance. Okay, so it's a multi-dimensional optimization process. We have a real algorithm running under the hood, and we supply the results as IAC, as Terraform code. So it's easy to deploy, and also, you see exactly what you're going to do, and you can version it. And so we came. The main reason to come was to meet the Kyndryl people, but also we met others. So I came with the 2 co-founders of Infras. They also managed to close our funding round, which was also good news. And I was roaming around the expo talking with like the 15,000 people who are there, probably.
I heard it was 60,000.
So I think I'm not sure how you count, because I also heard 60,000, but I think 60,000 includes the people who went to the lectures, or maybe it's the other way around. So I don't know. Okay. But the expo is essentially endless, right?
Yeah.
I think I met a few friends there. All of them agree. Like, all of them told me that they walk 25,000 steps a day, right? Yep. So me, by the way, me as well. So it's like 25 kilometers a day just walking.
Yeah.
Okay. Walking and talking. It's it's actually
so Guy, what was some of the themes that you picked up on in terms of the conversations? What were kind of going around the corridors in the showcase area?
Yeah. So I'll split it into two things: what I saw and what I talked about, and the feedback I got. Okay. So what I saw was obviously AI specifically agents, was like half the booths was around AI, and obviously FinOps. But when I talked with, let's say, two distinct types of potential customers for Infros. Okay, one is, let's call it, third-party applications. So companies who optimize, for example, storage, or they have a database or whatever they sell there. Okay, and with those companies, we can come and optimize their architecture to support more customers, right? So when they integrate with the customers, the integration is easier and better. And maybe down the road also they can like say, hey, I optimized your database, but what about the rest? Okay, so maybe talk with our friends here from Infras, they can help you with this. That's one, and that was very interesting. We have multiple leads on that front. And the other one, which was actually even more exciting, was system integrators, because we came for Kyndryl, but there were others there, many, and all of them were very excited about leveraging their engineering team using Infra. So essentially, you with the same engineering team, you can now support more customers and maybe even do a better job, probably do a better job than, you send an engineer, like a consultant, to design this new IT infrastructure, and instead of taking weeks, now it takes like a day. Okay, and probably doing it better because we actually scan the whole solution space, and not just, I don't just come with my boilerplate design and apply it to this, to the current customer. So that's kind of what Infrost was about. It was super busy, very fun, but exhausting, I have to say. Exhausting to the point that on Thursday I said, okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna fly now and not this evening. And I actually cut my visit short. And that was, but we had, we achieved everything we wanted from the conference.
Yeah. Was that the Vegas effect? After a while, it kind of wears off. The novelty wears off.
Well, Vegas, yeah, I think, again, I saw, how much money I lost in the casino?
No. You had time for that?
Well, the funny thing about Vegas is you go out of the gate from the airplane.
And it's right there.
It's right there. And I think there's like a law in Vegas that you can't walk more than 50 yards without hitting a slot machine or something. But anyway, I bet exactly zero, because we had no time, right?
Yeah,
we met. Yeah. I landed on Monday. We started hitting the conference all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, and that's it. By Thursday we were done. And on Wednesday night, you already see that the people at the booth, they ask you to sit when you talk with them, because they can't stand anymore, right?
Brilliant. So Guy, tell me also, did you notice any interesting talks, or did you actually get a chance to go to any interesting talks yourself?
I only saw one of the keynotes, but really, I was busy talking with other people. To be honest,
any of the announcements kind of caught your eye? Anything that was kind of, ooh, that's interesting? Was there anything interesting?
Yeah, I saw a bunch of things. One was because it was interesting for me because some of that is actually related to things that we want to offer, or we already offer. For example, did you know that when you train models, so there's a lot of waste in data science when you send a job to train and then it crashes, right? Now you need to, so you spend an hour or whatever, you spend an hour, a GPU hour, and it crashed, right? Now you need to restart it. And if you don't have, sometimes you need to start all over, right? And so Amazon, in one of the keynotes, they launched this service where you can actually not start over, but start from where it failed, and continue the training. So we also have a similar capability in our code. Obviously, as I'm not sure if I mentioned before, I didn't. So we are, unlike AWS, we're vendor agnostic. So if you train on GCP or Azure, we don't care. We will or even on-prem. We know how to reduce the waste on training, on failed jobs in training.
Yeah.
That was one thing that caught my eye, and the other one was on another keynote. The CEO of Vercel was talking about how Vercel is essentially doing something similar to Infros, but it's inbound. So when you host your project on Vercel, they also create this infrastructure for you, but obviously then you're locked into Vercel and you have to use their tools, and that's it, you're on Vercel, right? So it's not for everyone.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
And what about the kind of just another question for me, kind of the overall organization? Was it kind of easy to find stuff? Did you guys kind of, I know the showcase area was big, but was it easy to find?
Yeah. It was no problem. The only problem was Wi-Fi as usual, and even cellular internet was. I mean, at some point,
we can vouch for that from last year's live stream. We really struggled to get everybody on last year.
Yeah, I would imagine that Amazon, right? They'll have that fixed. But maybe they need to buy some more routers on Amazon or something. I don't know. There was like no bandwidth, and at some point, instead of connecting with people on LinkedIn, I would just I just took pictures of their badge, because that was like the only way to remember who they are. Otherwise, some of the times we didn't have any internet. So that was kind of, that was a downer, I have to say. Other than that, in terms of food and swag, it was fun, I have to say. We literally didn't spend $1 on food, because you can either take the food from Amazon or you go to all of those hosted events, which is crazy.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like the amounts are crazy, and and you go there, and it's people like, it's not just a random party, right? I mean, I actually have a fantastic lead with a major company, only by talking with him, waiting for the sushi to be served, right? kind of. So
Brilliant.
always be selling, as they say. But those events are a fantastic, like, lead generators.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I know. I was just saying to Saim, what I picked up on. We were saying about sort of how the AI services that AWS is introducing gradually are sort of increasing not just the sophistication, but that kind of autonomy, that agency sort of capability. Now, obviously, with AI agents and so on, so they introduced quite a lot of those. And I did pick up on something where it said, we've kind of moving from the AI assistants are giving way to AI agents. Did you kind of see that as well in the showcase? And
AI agents was it was very prevalent. Let's say agents was. It was essentially so if, let's say, half the books were saying something about we support AI for X, okay, so half of those were actually AI agents, the AI agentic era, or whatever AI agents are definitely the next thing, or actually the current thing.
Just a one question from my side, Richard, Guy, is like, back in the day, we see some of the startup build up where you actually give them an application code. From the application code, they recognize what the infrastructure you need in the cloud or what other places. There's a Cloudflare app. There's a bunch of other. We've seen that, but somehow they're never going to be adopted, and those companies haven't got anywhere. They eventually go down. They shut down. The idea was right. We like the approach of writing code, and the infrastructure has been spun up for you. That's as a business style, it's never been scaled. But the AI agents now doing the same thing. So do you think the next year more and more companies trying to adopt, or more and more, once again, fight going on between the developers and the infrastructure team, because developers using their agents that are completely different from the platform team that they actually added the agent for the developer? So do you think the business side and plus the technological side, what do you think, like, on those points?
So I think it's like the bigger question of will AI replace us, kind of, right?
Yes, I think not. I think
No, no pressures, Guy. It's an easy question.
yes, absolutely.
What?
You get all the easy questions on this live stream.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. The problem I see in the platform engineering space currently in development, because a lot of the IDP is building capabilities on the AI agent, but those AI agent are on the foundational model side. The problem is that once the pricing change on those foundational layer, the rest of the business effect. Now, what the company is trying to do, they build their own agent. The problem I see what's happening is agents are different in every different place. Like the developers using the agents are different than the platform engineering using the agents are
Mhm.
different. So that's a quite of a battle going on these days. So I'm just curious to know your thoughts on this problem.
So look, we also have agents, right? Our own agents, right? Not necessarily ones that we like trained, I would say, like the underlying models, but we do, we have our that's essentially what you need, right? I wouldn't go train the model, right? I wouldn't go create another chat GPT, right? Another LLM, right? But your added value, that's where your value is, right? The added value, this insight, specifically for infras, for example, we have the LLMs on, we use it, obviously, there's a layer of generative AI, but but we also have this all of the information and experience that we have, that we already kind of baked it into the product, and the agents are not just roaming and like loose in space. They are very actually tightly bound to what we want them to do, and also use our experience. Actually, we actually are launching the platform now, and the reason we took our time a little bit was we wanted to see that the performance of the agents of the platform essentially is we're happy with it, as if one of us gave this infrastructure, right? Gave this code, as if we wrote it. And I think that point is missed for most companies, especially for startups. And then those startups are the ones that will be that Google can decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to add Gemini to Google Meet, and that's it. Nobody needs those 30 other startups who are taking notes on Meet. That's it. They're done. So unless you have any added value, right? Uh, right. That's kind of where we are. I mean, so going back to my original question, so AI will replace you if you're not doing your job. And right, if you use, I mean, I use AI all the time, but if if Claude creates this funky, weird, and nonsense kind of a deck, and you don't know that it's nonsense because you don't have the experience to know it's nonsense, then yeah, I would go work on, build,
Yes.
get another
Yes.
profession, work on something.
Yes, I was joking with Richard yesterday on this topic, like why people are going to the AWS reInvent. And the question is, I think some of the companies, some of the startups see themselves, oh, are we out of the business or stay relevant in the business as well? Or AWS starting doing the same thing that we are doing? So that's the question here. But Richard, luckily we have another guest, so I need to introduce them
Yay.
on the stream
Okay.
as well. Christian, you are now live. Thank you for joining. Give us a quick intro.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Christian.
Hello, Christian. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
So,
Christian,
We can hear you. Yeah. How you doing?
So, I mean, to introduce myself for the people who may not know me, I do cost optimization, so mostly the area of FinOps. That's my focus, and I am kind of the technical side of FinOps, looking into the ways to reduce the costs by just looking at the technology options that we have at our disposal and better ways to use the cloud to get cost optimization in place. So, yeah, speaking of that area, so concerning my focus, I've seen a bunch of things that were interesting in the new releases. I didn't attend reInvent, but I've been keeping an eye on the announcements.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, the most exciting things was the new Graviton chips that are upcoming. which were released in preview. A lot of the things related to the Lambda managed instances, which is something that I've been exploring actually over the last few days. So started to build some tooling for automatically detecting the configurations where this makes sense and trying to help roll out this kind of change in the real world. Because people may have a bunch of lambdas out there, but they may not know, okay, does it even make sense to run this feature for my footprint? And started to build something that looks at the metrics and kind of estimates, okay, does it make sense for you or not? And that's one of the things. And the last one that I have in my mind is the database savings plans, which is something that I've been expecting. I mean, I've been hoping to see something in this space for the last 5 years or so, and never happened before. And finally, they did it this year. It is exciting in a way, but also I was a bit disappointed because they just it's still not completely overshadowing the RIs. There are still use cases where it still makes sense to purchase RIs in this space. And I wrote a piece on why I'm not like completely excited about it. But in the end, it also it covers serverless. So if you do serverless databases, you get some coverage for those. And yeah, it's for the first time quite a meaningful way to reduce those costs. Actually, I expanded my RI and savings plans tooling within the first day of the release to also add support for purchasing this. So yeah, looking forward to use it for my clients going forward.
Cool.
These were like the top three.
Just a quick question. Just a quick question, Christian, on this thing. Like, have you used some of the CNCF tooling, some of the toolings on the cost optimization side, like CADA, Carpenter, or like some of the things around some generic tooling on the cost side? Have you used CADA or Carpenter or bunch of the tooling that exist in the CNCF landscape?
Carpenter I've been using. I mean, I've been working before at AWS in the Spot service team, and it's basically built by some of my former colleagues. So I've been pretty familiar with the project since the early days. And after leaving AWS, I kind of also included it as part of my offering. So help clients set it up and run it over time. I haven't been using it very recently anymore. So this has been maybe a year ago that I last looked into Carpenter. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the main projects in the Kubernetes space, and pretty popular.
Oh yes, that's nice to know.
The other one, I'm not familiar with it, so it's the first time I hear that.
Yes, SCADA, I think it's from the Microsoft. Kubernetes event-driven auto-scaling as well. They have some HTTP scalers, like in what scenarios or what triggers to upscale the node or downscale the node or upscale the CPU or upscale the memory as well. So that's
okay. Now I realize it's the vertical scaling included.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I didn't recognize the name.
Yes, I think right now the Azure is actually integrated by default in the Azure EKS cluster, and I think Carpenter is added on the AWS EKS clusters by the default add-on as well. So I think, as you mentioned in cost optimization, there's not even an option anymore. It's been a strategy that whatever we do, make sure AWS doesn't give us surprises at the end of the day. That's a pretty much plan here as well. Going back to Guy, you have any seen some of the customer talking point or some of the pain point you haven't seen around the cost optimization side of it, or anything?
Oh, it's funny that you just mentioned that the surprises at the end of the month, which is, it's not only about Azure, it's about all the clouds, right?
Yes.
And So the way we deal with it, and that's kind of one of the first things. So I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but the tech we have is actually based on what the founders did in their military service. Right, they were responsible for our intelligence unit clouds, and so obviously it's very big, right, and costly. So it will we embed into our Terraform FinOps guardrails, right? So you will never, or not, almost like 95% of reduction in the chances to get surprised by the end of the month, right? We already put that guardrail into the Terraform.
Awesome, wonderful. So, Richard, we have one more guest arrive. So we have some
Fantastic.
questions. We have some wonderful
It's a
panel
party
going
line
on.
here, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about cost optimization, why not be talking about the security in general and policies in general? And we have some wonderful guests from Nirmata. Randy, thank you very much. You're now live. You can
Hello,
say, I think
Randy.
it's really wonderful to meet you here. Randy, can you give us a quick intro about the stuff you've been doing in the Nirmata, and then we talk about some of the things you learned from the AWS reInvent?
Yeah. Hey, guys. It's great to meet you. My name is Randy. I am the Strategic Partner Development Manager here at Nirmata. I'm joining because I manage our AWS relationship, and I'm a previous Amazonian. So it's great to talk reInvent and all things AWS. We are super excited about our relationship with AWS and things we're hearing at reInvent because it's aligning right with our messaging. As you know, we're the creators of Kubernetes. So we're very much aligned there. Obviously, we're the main contributors to that project, and we're looking forward to next year. Kubernetes just came out with 1.16, which added cell-based policies, which people were super excited about, and we've already had customer adoption there. And then most importantly, with Nirmata sitting on top of Kubernetes, we came out with our AI platform engineering assistant, which people found most intriguing because it aligned a lot with what people were saying at Reinforce and main announcements. So we have everything from a co-pilot to a CLI agent, policy authoring agent. And then what I found most interesting was I had really great feedback with our remediation agent. That is not only saying, hey, this is what's wrong, but hey, this is what's wrong, and here's exactly how to fix it. So I think that really aligned with, what they're saying as far as agent governance, centralized control and visibility, as well as creating, for platform engineers, taking the heavy lifting away with already creating policies using code, policy as code. So it's, I'm super excited about what we have going on. We have some great things, especially on the Kubernetes side, and the community just keeps growing. We added 12 new adopters this year with Kubernetes, which is huge. And we're looking forward to hopefully graduation early in 2026 with Kubernetes.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Randy, for giving us a quick intro. Richard, do you have some questions for our guest?
Yeah. I just wanted Randy kind of we're asking, we've been asking Guy and Christian kind of their take on reInvent. What was kind of some of the things maybe that stood out for you? Obviously, AI agents has been all the talk. Certainly the keynotes, were full of that. And credit to AWS. I think they announced some interesting stuff, which was kind of augmenting from the maybe the last couple of years sort of announcements and reInvent. But what was kind of your take overall, and maybe also just some of the conversations that you maybe had either with customers or other people that you kind of met at the event?
Yeah, of course. I think what stood out to me is, there's a lot of questions around AI. So what stood out to me was the agent governance, having specific frameworks to control what the AI agents are allowed and not allowed to do within your accounts. I think that was a big question that everybody had. And so that was a big announcement around that. We're having the same conversations with our customers when it comes to our agents. and our platform engineering assistant. We talked to, the fastest growing fast food chain in the US. We talked to one of the largest car manufacturers in the US. And then we had great alignment right now with financial services. As you know, there's a ton of governance and compliance around what they're doing with financial services. So we talked with multiple large banking and financial services customers. And I feel like we're really focused on regulated industries, but we're already seeing the uptick in customer adoption. They're already using Kyverno, but now adopting NCH, which is Nirmata Control Hub, which has our agents embedded there. So we're seeing good alignment there, but I think the agent governance stood out to me personally because we all had questions around that. And then I think what else stood out was the centralized control and visibility. So, we have all of these things going on. How can I see what's going on in one single plane rather than going to different teams and pulling different things there? So, right, we all want simplified governance and compliance, and our customers definitely echoed that within our meetings. Where can we go for a one-stop shop all together, centralized governance and compliance? So that was really stood out to me there. And then I think just in general, we want to see platform engineering. With people within platform engineering, we want to take the heavy lifting away, right? Being able to create policies quickly and easily, especially using our AI agents, that's a big thing. Making things easier, streamlined, and having their time back to things that really, really, really matter. So if we can simplify policy creation, that was one of our big things too. And that was resonating well, not only with our customers, but with the financial services segment at AWS, as well as, like I said, fast food chain and other regulated industries.
Yes, I think that right now the companies and the enterprises can only see the mandate of the implementing or having the policy as code mindset. But I think it's been always been the need inside the companies. But having a technology that's super easy to apply with is missing for a long time. Back in the day, we have open policy agent, the Rago policy. That's been great. People have been using it. I've used for some of our customer bases. But having a simplified version is missing a lot. And that's where I really appreciate the Nirmata team for creating Kyverno for the simplified version of the policies. And that's, I think, been really resonating. So, Randy, my one question for you on the partnership side and other side as well is like in terms of the Nirmata, when you go into the AWS reInvent, what sort of the conversation you having most with the customer when they're talking about the Nirmata usage or thinking about integrating it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? It kind of froze for a second while you were saying the question.
I'm just saying, like on the Nirmata side, we have some. I think you have done a wonderful job of giving a customer of one single pane of visibility. But in 2025, in particular, when you go into the AWS reInvent, what sort of the conversation you having most with the customers?
I think, like I said, using our AI agents to make things quicker. My conversations personally, I felt like our remediation agent just really resonated, because it's okay to say, hey, what is misconfigured? What is wrong here? It's one thing to say that, but it's a whole nother thing to say, this is what's wrong and here's exactly how to fix it in a matter of seconds. So it's really streamlining that process. I think that's what resonated most for me. Were y'all hearing something different, or was that aligning with what you're hearing as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think that Guy was with there, so I'm going back to Guy again. It's like I think like me and Richard is taking about a lot. Like 2026 might be the year of AI ops. Like remediation is no longer a step in the pipeline, because I think back in the days everybody said, "Oh, this is something happening bad," and all of the notification happening into the Slack, and nobody is paying attention to. And back in the day,
I have this business card from another company, whatever the name is. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but they only do the remediation, right? They have this, yeah, within 5 minutes we'll get you up, up and running again. So and that's it for with them. For example, I talked with them about that we can design a resilient architecture, and in that 5% chance that it will break, because things break, not necessarily because something you did, for example, AWS shutdown, then they will kick in and do the remediation. So obviously remediation is the thing here. Yeah, 100%. Everything you said, I agree.
Awesome.
Let me a couple of questions. Sorry, Randy, just for you. Before I forget what's in my head, there's a couple of themes that kind of came out, and you guys are right in terms of the observability side. Even Gartner, I was actually at a Gartner conference less than a month ago in London, and they were pointing out, the analysts were pointing out that the observability needs to step up to the kind of the next generation, if you like, or next kind of capability, which is the remediation side, which you mentioned, but also bringing in that sort of smarter Gen AI based AI ops, so kind of a Gen AI ops, if you want to call it that. Maybe I've just coined a new phrase there. I don't know, but the point being is that I want to be able to not just kind of get an alert from my observability tool that says, yeah, somebody's breached the policy here, or somebody's kind of trying to log in somewhere they're not allowed, or somebody's kind of authorized, not authorized, or whatever, to do something. But I want to be able to as you said, for the for things like Iveno to be able to remediate that, but also I want to be able to ask the tool prompts, so I can actually have a conversation. So if we can't find the fix, we can't find the problem, or what's the best solution, to actually say to them, well, speculate, give me the top 5 things that you think would be the best way to fix this problem. You've kind of identified the alert. So we've got the alert, we've got the pattern. So this has been happening. Lots of people are making maybe the same mistake on our, on our system. And it's not their fault. They're not kind of trying to hack it or anything. They just think they've got a right to access this data or this file or this area of the of our system or something. But what's the best way to fix this? And then for the tool, because it's a Gen AI based tool, for the tool to say, okay, well, here's the top 3 ways you can go and fix it, Richard. Right? And I think that would be really cool. And that's what Gartner, I think, was alluding to last year. And I don't know whether kind of you're seeing that, or maybe you're hearing that as well from from sort of customer wish lists and things like that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what customers were going to be resonating with as far as was it going to be easy policy creation? Was it going to be one of our other agents? The thing I heard over and over and over for current customers and prospective customers was the remediation piece, like hands down. Because like I said, it's easy to say, hey, this is wrong. Okay, that's easy. But in a matter of seconds, this is wrong, and this is how exactly to fix it right now. So I think that's what resonated most for me. And the AWS teams are super interested in, us presenting that going forward in 2026, because
cool.
their customers are hearing that as well.
Christian, I just wanted to bring you in very quickly on this. What are you kind of seeing from that sort of AI agent space? Are you, able to bring it into some? I know you've kind of, you do a lot of stuff which is proprietary, but I think that's probably the best way to do it, is kind of cut the code yourself and do it yourself and kind of make it, it's customized. So what's kind of exciting you in around sort of AI agents? How do you think you're going to be kind of working with them?
Yeah, so far I'm using AI, but mostly in a different way, like for code generation mainly, and then the code itself is not using AI behind the scenes. mainly for reasons that come around like hallucinations, and like I'm a bit cautious about when talking about numbers and money. It's a tricky topic, and I'd rather have like regular old school logic than some hallucination dollar figures. But having said that, there is a lot of potential in this space as the AI matures. I mean, even over the last, let's say, 6 months, there was amazing progress in the models that are available. And I mean, just now AWS released all these new models and all these new workflows.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like there will be a day where you can just go and, I mean, there is still already support for some of this, but you can just go and ask it questions. And yeah, I've seen a lot of the news are on this topic. I am a bit cautious about just going straight away and just doing it, but like with careful let's say implementation. I'm for sure very, very eager to try out all these new good stuff in the AI space.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some, sort of FinOps Weekly, and someone's kind of, mentioned, agentic revolution and FinOps and things like that. But let's look at just curious about your sort of take on this. I attended a Flexera event a few months ago, and their main focus seemed to be on integrating ITAM and SLM and stuff like that into FinOps. Do you think that's kind of the right direction to be worrying about ITAM and in FinOps, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this space they are expanding FinOps to also cover costs for let's say third-party vendors that things like Datadog and all those other providers that end up costing companies money. And yeah, the space is evolving also towards that direction, in parallel to all this AI evolution that's been happening. So yeah, it's both at the same time. And yeah, in a way, yeah, it's normal to see companies like Flexera, you mentioned, explore that area. For my particular work, I'm kind of focusing on the AWS side of things, so it's a bit out of scope for me, so I cannot really say as much. Okay, well, like, yeah, I'm kind of just focusing on the technical side of things within AWS. That's my take on that.
Richard, we have another guest comes up, so the party is going to be started just now. So Mike, hello, how are you? You're now on the live.
Hey.
Hi there.
Hello.
Nice.
Hello, Mike. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Excellent, Mike. Nice to see you. Can we just for the audience and everybody else, just a quick intro from yourself to you and to Scale Factory as well, please.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Mike. I'm Chief Product and Technology Officer at the Scale Factory. We are an AWS consulting partner, doing things like migrations, building AI systems, all sorts of things with cloud hosting.
Fantastic. So, Mike, you guys were at a reInvent, is that correct?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I got back the weekend.
Right. Excellent. Okay. Well, I hope you got a chance to do some sightseeing. We're talking about nobody can avoid the gambling over there. As soon as you walk out of some of this,
I avoided the gambling.
Apart from Guy, apparently, yes. I was the only one, but you managed to cut it short. I think your trip. Maybe you kind of avoided that last temptation of giving it one go at the roulette wheel.
I was about to board the plane and said, "What? I would leave Vegas without losing $1."
So I'll say this: do they have the betting machines at the airport as well?
They have it out of the gate. You get out of the gate, the first thing you see before you see the stewardess, you see a slot machine.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so Mike, what was we've just kind of been asking everybody's take on, the event overall. So just kind of give us a little bit of an overview of the event and sort of the organization, and a little bit more about kind of what what were some of the main themes that you picked up on as well, in the conference.
Yeah, so I mean, reInvent is crazy. It's like what 60 to 70,000 people I think went this year. So pretty large scale tech conference, and Vegas is crazy as well. So if anybody hasn't been to reInvent, hasn't been to Vegas, it's like two crazy things together, and so it's quite overwhelming really, and full on. But within the 4 or 5 days, like jam packed with stuff, like so much information, so many people to talk to, so many sort of things going on, with AWS showcasing things that you can do on their platform, and all of the new stuff coming as well. For me, I think the real focus, I guess, is the keynotes. Lots of announcements throughout the week. I kind of joked that it was AI invent, because although there was an AI specific keynote on sort of on the Wednesday, the main keynote from the CEO of AWS was literally like 2 hours of AI with 10 minutes. He actually made a point of, I've got 10 minutes at the end to talk about non-AI stuff. So it was AI throughout, really. Unsurprising. For me, I think the most interesting thing was looking through the sort of AI noise. I mean, there is interesting stuff in the AI space, but looking at the stuff that just makes your day-to-day easier. So I think my highlight of the conference was probably AWS announcing database savings plans. Really boring, but one of those things that you can just take back and go, okay, actually that's going to make my life easier and save money.
Fantastic. And what were some of the did you get a chance to sit in on any talks, Mike?
I sat in on I mean, not that many, I have to admit. There's a lot going on, so I watched the keynotes, and then a couple of interesting talks, but the main thing really was there's so many things at the event, like round tables and just speaking with people and networking and learning and understanding. As a consulting partner, I find it really valuable to talk to other consulting partners, their experiences and interacting with AWS and sort of working with them, meeting with customers as well and vendors. So very much a networking and learning event for me.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, there was certainly a lot of announcements, and you're right in terms of Matt Garman's, I think the CEO's presentation was pretty much all, AI based. There's lots around their Trainium processor, around, I picked up on some of the financials. So it was things like, AWS is growing 20% year on year, 132 billion annual recurring revenue, 22 billion over the last 12 months, I believe. I think he was quite proud in saying that that's more revenue than half of the Fortune 500 companies put together, which was quite interesting. Bedrock has had 100,000 companies around the world using it for inference. S3's got 500 terabytes worth of objects, or trillions, I should say, of objects. Over 50% of the CPUs deployed this year were Graviton chips. That's a real win, I think, for AWS, and they're kind of moving away from, bad news for the likes of Intel and AMD, I suppose. And 2 million plus Bedrock Agent Core SDK downloads. So that's a huge one for them. And I know Saim loves this topic, quantum computing. They have something called Ocelot, which is their quantum computing prototype, with error correction of more than 90%, he said. So that's really good. It's ironic that we have to talk about error correction in the age of CPUs, but when it comes to quantum, it's slightly more useful and interesting. So yeah,
So
that was quite cool.
So Mike, I have some question, because I think have you seen anyone talking on the AWS in the conversation you have, anyone talking about platform engineering? If you have find some of those conversation, what was some of the things? What was the one domain they're talking about in platform engineering? Really interesting, interesting to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think two things really. The first thing is these were announced twice. So there are some agents that AWS have announced. I think one's related to DevOps and another one's security, if I remember correctly, and there are others. And these are agents that will, go off and try to kind of like understand and remediate and do some, I guess SRE type stuff. So that was interesting, really. I haven't had a chance to play with them and have a look at them. I'm a little bit scared, I have to say, having some AI agent, run off in the wild in an environment and start doing stuff. Probably one of those things that you do in a test environment first, before you let loose on production. So I think that's a big thing, and I think we'll see more of that because a lot of vendors are starting to add agentic capabilities to their products as well. So a lot more automation is being taken up by the platform and the vendors. So I think that will have a big impact in the platform engineering space. Huge. If it goes off in the direction that everyone hopes, but we'll see. So I think that'll have a massive impact. And then I think for me, it's the other side of things is the more boring stuff. So AWS announced a whole load of things that would just make your life easier, really. So things like I mentioned the savings plans, but also Guard Duty is their threat detection system. It now covers EC2 and ECS out of the box, no extra cost. These are almost the announcements where you sit there and you think, I thought that was already a thing. Why is this not a thing? Why didn't their threat detection automatically cover EC2? These are the things that are going to make everyone's life easier. Lots of service announcements as well that I think if they didn't have AI in the if it wasn't an AI related thing, it just got lost in the noise a little bit. The Guard Duty stuff, database savings plans. I think the Lambda durable functions is really interesting. I think a lot of use cases where you would rule Lambda out as a way of being able to execute some code and do some compute. You can now go back and revisit and say, okay, actually, these durable functions are really useful. So that sort of thing, really.
Yeah. So Mike, you were on the you've been, I guess, on the Code to Culture series that Saim and I have been running on our channels. The other point, so that was really cool, and I think you're right. There's a lot kind of in that background, and I kind of try and sort of read between the lines as well when it comes to these announcements, because you kind of get the headline stuff, but then kind of okay, but how are you going to use this and how's it going to fit in, sort of thing, is really interesting. One of the things that we've been sort of going around and sort of with Guy, Christian, and Randy as well, is this sort of around sort of governance and policy and so on. So they did announce policy in Agent Core. I think it was an interesting thing for them, but I'm just kind of trying to sort of get my head around which way do we do this? Do we do this kind of, do we kind of bring in this type of policy engine after the fact when something's trying to kind of access, or some person or some agent's trying to do something, and then we kind of allow it to do that or not allow it to do that? Or do we kind of set them ahead of time and say, okay, I think this is kind of my basic list of things that I don't want people to be doing in my VPC or whatever cloud environment. But then if you also get these other things, which I can't predict right now, please also stop these other ones. I don't know exactly what they are, but they'll be in this area, and can we kind of, what's the best approach to kind of do this sort of thing? What's your take on it? And maybe we can get Randy in as well afterwards.
Yeah, I think, well, for a start, it's one of these things where it's constantly changing. So it's like, what makes sense at this point in time? And what I like to do is I like to look at things that are similar, like where we've had, we've got more of established practice. And I think for me, it's similar to you set up a cloud environment, right? And I don't know if anybody watching is familiar with the concept of a landing zone, but a landing zone is, okay, this is our hosting environment on AWS, Azure, whatnot, and it's our set of controls and governance at an account and organizational level. We put this cap on spend, we restrict these types of instances, we put these security controls in place. And so the idea of that is it's sort of like a safety net. It's like belts and braces. So it's not, this is the extent of the security we're doing, and we're expecting everybody to sort of be Wild West. It's if a developer accidentally, is way too permissive with a security group or does something, or somebody tries to spin up the most expensive EC2 instance, it will stop it. It will protect it. So it's a series of guardrails, and I see things like guardrails in Bedrock and the policy controls in Agent Core being like that. It's like, it's not, this is the way that you should secure it. It's build your agents and build your Gen AI applications sensibly with security in mind. But if somebody doesn't do that, there is a bit of a safety net. Right. It might not stop it, but it's something to sort of help protect it. So it's the belt and braces approach.
Okay, interesting. Randy, what's kind of your take on what we're saying?
I agree with that. I would echo that, and I would say we're aligning very, very closely with the Bedrock product team as well as the EKS product teams to make sure, look, this is exactly what you're wanting to see from partners going forward. So that's, I would definitely agree there.
But one of the things that obviously, I mean, AWS is kind of doing it for their platforms, and that's great. But kind of, with Kyveno and what you guys do at Nomata, it's a generalized approach. You go beyond kind of, even the hyperscalers. You can kind of achieve that wherever you like, wherever that type of environment, cloud native environment is running. You'll be able to achieve that. And I think that's interesting because one of the things, obviously, that people have been talking about endlessly, it seems, is things like cloud repatriation and vendor lock-in and stuff like that. So things like cloud abstraction, as I would call it, is sort of certainly a viable option where you take sort of, or have control over those things and not kind of be putting them in one basket, if you like. Kind of your DevOps and your observability, your policy and things like that are a lot more universal or global, if you like. So they're not kind of, you're just not taking advantage of one thing. Sure, I mean, if you are an AWS, and as kind of Mike was saying, then yeah, it absolutely makes sense to take advantage of the things in there. But because you're not necessarily just going to be there, you're going to be in multi-cloud, and maybe have stuff still in the data center and what have you. If you have kind of coming up from a more sort of a heritage organization with lots of data center heritage, then you need something that will address them all as well. Is that something, Randy, that you're seeing from customers? Do they kind of say, yeah, but I don't want to just do it in Azure and AWS, I want to do it like for everything?
Yes, majority of our customers, we are hearing AWS, but sometimes if they're super regulatory, we are hearing the latter. And that's why I think it's like super important to make sure like we as a partner have our best practices in place and are constantly meeting with product teams to make sure, like I said, whether it's at Azure, whether it's in the Kubernetes space, to make sure we're aligning with those industries and what we're hearing from customers, and then those product teams as well.
Cool.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Guy, are you kind of, what's your take on this sort of policy driven type of approach? Is that something that you guys doing at the moment?
I was wondering if you read it off our website, because we are multi-cloud and hybrid and on-prem, exactly because what you said. We don't want to be.
We have the tick boxes already for that in for us. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, exactly that. Look, we actually have a case study where we showed a customer they need to move from, I want to say, from Azure to Google, but I'm not sure. And that that alone like reduced their costs like significantly. Okay, with essentially the same, same architecture. Essentially, it's just for what they needed, Azure or Google, whatever it was, made so much more sense. And that's that's the benefit of using services like ours, which is we don't get any kickbacks from anyone. We are truly on the customer side, and when we say, hey, I mean, can you use the AWS? Forgot the name of the service that plans your architecture for you. Yeah, it will probably do a good job on AWS, but it will never tell you, hey, actually, if you do it on Google, it will be better, right? So you need someone on your side, and that's where we are, right? Like that's what we're trying to say, that we look. And by the way, nobody will tell you, oh, use us and them, right? So. So that's kind of yeah. So I was waiting for you to. I was waiting actually to to barge into the discussion, but you invited me, so good. Yeah.
Cool. And Christian, for you, kind of policy side, is that something that you're sort of looking into? Do you kind of work in that space? Are you looking to work in that space?
I mean, I think you guys touched a bit on from the cost perspective on not being able to provision certain instance types and stuff like that. So there are for sure use cases for guardrails and policies also in my area of cost optimization and FinOps. So you can for sure enforce a bunch of things when it comes to like configurations that make more sense for your organization, and you don't want developers to like go wild and come up with things that maybe are not the best way, or like something that's a bit against your way of doing things. So yeah, that's something that I've been exploring as well and using it in my customers. Yeah, but like I haven't been following like the reInvent announcements on that area as much. So I'll have to catch up a bit with those. And yeah, to be honest, I also there's so much to absorb. So yeah, I'm also catching up.
It can certainly be a hose pipe thing, right? It's kind of trying to catch up with everything. But yeah, I think it's important that we sort of look at that. And one of the things, and again, Mike, just going back to you briefly, the kind of agent approach. I mean, they announced a lot of agent kind of activity into existing tools that I think that they've had from last year. But the area that I was kind of intrigued by, apart from the sort of the agent core stuff, they announced something around AWS Transform. So they've had that for a while, but there's like a customized version of it now, apparently. So you've kind of had let's go from .NET to Python, let's go from C++ to Rust or whatever type of. And this is obviously in the migration space when you're taking customers into AWS. But they also mentioned something around AWS Transform Custom. So I guess this is kind of allowing customers and certainly partners such as yourself to kind of help with that a lot more as well. Was that kind of did you hear about that? Was that kind of your understanding?
I didn't see too much of that at reInvent, but I did speak with AWS about AWS Transform like a week or two beforehand, and they're trying to shape it up as a platform to enable migration and modernization and accelerate that, and do that at scale and do some of the tedious work. So if you have, let's say, a legacy .NET application and you're looking to migrate and modernize that and move that to a platform where maybe you need to update the code a bit, maybe you need to bump up the .NET framework, then you can use that to do that at scale. I think AWS Transform has been out for a little while and didn't have as much agentic capability as it does now, so they seem to be adding more and more to it to just make that happen. Like if you're an organization and you've got 100 services that you need to move to containers and move those to the cloud, and they are not running the latest framework version for you to do that. That is a lot of work to go away to each of those applications,
Right.
and update the framework, test it, validate it, make the code changes and whatnot. And so the tool in here is supporting that. So from what I understand, the customizations are the ability to allow you to take it beyond what you have out of the box. I mean, that sounds obvious, right? But if AWS Transform supports a particular migration or modernization path, it allows you to sort of, tweak it a little bit and customize it for your use case, which is, important.
Cool. We'll come back to that because there's a couple of other things around that. I think AWS Transform announcements. But Guy, we wanted to thank you for your time. I know you kind of need to maybe move on to other stuff as well. So we appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. And we'll definitely reconnect with you in 2026. And yeah, we'd love to see kind of some demos and do more stuff with you on our mutual channels. But yeah, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate your insights.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. So yeah, Mike, just kind of continuing the just one other point on this. So the Matt Garman was talking about, so AWS, I mean, he kind of talked about or mentioned AWS Transform as the first agentic AI service for transforming Windows mainframe and VMware workloads. So assuming that there's a number of kind of automations, I think, that happen with that. And, the idea was kind of to modernize, with specialized agents trained on 19 years worth of AWS experience, deliver complex modernization projects at scale, reduce legacy licensing infrastructure and modernization costs and so on. So, I mean, I think this is a big area for them. And we'll probably see, and then I think the next slide was about the AWS Transform Custom, but just Transform overall. This is a really painful area for customers, isn't it? Kind of trying to, get off those legacy systems, and they achieve a little bit of, and I'm sure you've seen this before, they achieve a little bit of lift and shift into the cloud, but then the big sort of problems and obstacles come up when they need to modernize their code. So we can't just keep on lifting and shifting and then we just continue writing more crap code, back in the data center. We have to modernize what we have at some point. I see Christian laughing. They've probably got lots of experience with that. So this is a big area, right? What's kind of, what's your view on it?
Yeah, it's one of these things where as you look at this tooling, and a lot of the capability that they're sort of releasing is AWS always do this. They release something like preview mode, and then it settles. It gets a bit more generally available. So we haven't had a chance to cut our teeth with any of this yet. But I'm thinking of even just 18 months ago, looking at a project where a customer has tens or hundreds of legacy .NET and Java applications, and the migration path is okay. Well, we're running .NET version 3 .NET framework. It needs to be moved to .NET. We need to get it to .NET Core so we can run it in a container and we can bring it across to the cloud. And all of these things create barriers. And then when you start to look at the timeline and time frame of it, it just draws out years. All of a sudden, this becomes a 5 to 10 year migration project, modernization, because these apps have to be updated. The frameworks have to be updated where they are, and then you can migrate them. And so, tooling like AWS Transform, where you can use the idea is you can use this agent, you can interact with it with natural language, and basically say, okay, I have these code bases. Can you bump it from Python version 2 point something to version 3 point something, or update it to .NET Core? And the idea is it'll go away and make those changes to those repositories and stage those. Now we've used some of the earlier tooling, and it never just did it. It wasn't like you could run it and bam, this code can go into production. However, it gave you a starting point, right? It made some changes. you could then test it and you go, okay, well, actually, maybe we'll tweak it and we'll do this and it needs this update over here. But the idea is it will do some of the heavy lifting for you and give you a starting point. I haven't used Transform in its latest sort of incarnation to see whether, with giving it one command, update my 100 applications to say .NET Core, whether it'll go away and come back and do that and go great and it'll run. I suspect not, but if it gets you 60, 70, 80% of the way there, then it's huge savings.
Yeah, it's not. We're not the copy and paste your mainframe into the cloud yet.
No, definitely not. And people are still running mainframes out there. They're still running like applications in COBOL. You go out there and engineers are being hired for it, and I think that's still going to be the case for a long time.
Yes, sir.
But maybe this is the start of some of those applications being broken up and modernized.
Cool. Sorry, just one question for Christian, and we'll let him go because he does need to leave us, unfortunately. Christian, what's the do you see kind of cost savings that you work on with customers, both in that legacy mode, apps that are being just lifted and shifted as they were kicking and screaming from the data center into the public cloud, as well as kind of some of the more modern cloud native stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a mix at my clients for these kind of things. They have a lot of the legacy, even like Windows, individual Snowflake instances. I mean, Snowflake in the sense not that running Snowflake, but like each of them is a pet in that sense. So they have pet instances that they manage manually and do these kind of things. So for those, the optimizations that we can do are quite limited. You can maybe do some right sizing or maybe better instance type selection, maybe purchase some savings plan or ROI for it, but your options are quite limited for those. Yeah, so there's not so much you can do to make it more let's say cloud native. But it is for sure a good part of the footprint of many of my clients. So I have to take care of those as well, even though it's not my favorite thing in the world. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Christian, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on. I think it was short notice as well. It was only a few days ago that I coerced you, kind of twisted your arm into coming on, because I know you're kind of in the AWS space. I really wanted to get your insights. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. I'll definitely catch up with you in 2026. We've got a lot more stuff to talk about in this area. So I really look forward to that. I think that'll be quite cool. And wish you a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you in 2026.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and it was a pleasure to meet everybody. See you all.
Cheers, Christian. Thank you. Excellent.
Awesome. So just Richard, one question from our guest from Nirmata is like, I think they've been doing some wonderful. I think I've been started using Kyverno from 2022. I think I heard about Kyverno 2021 with one of the community within the CNCF community, and back then I think it's now becoming a tool from going into the standard mode as well. So I wish to see. I need to hear some Randy's thoughts. What's in the plan for the 2026? Because I believe we're living in an AI world where security is, people are far more busy than ever. Like with all of the toolings coming up, especially with the MCP server, we're using those kind of capability, but the customers and the companies thinking, now we have a problem. We have new problems to solve, like security is a cornerstone of it. So Randy, any thoughts around what's been in the pipeline for the 2026?
Yeah, so I'll start with Kyverno. We just came out with 1.16. Like we added cell-based policies there. And like I said, we've already had customer adoption, really good feedback. We're continuing to grow the community. There's been an uptick in the Kyverno Slack, Kyverno users, Kyverno adopters, as well as Kyverno maintainers. The big thing for Kyverno at the beginning of 2026, like I said, is the CNCF graduation. So, if you're a graduated project, that's the highest level you can go as an open source project. So we're well on our way there, and I'm hoping that will come hopefully before KubeCon EU. And then as far as Nirmata goes, like I said, we purposefully built Nirmata to sit on top of Kyverno, doing the extra governance, security, compliance, and then using our new platform engineering assistant, using AI and our agents there to make things as easy as possible. I'm not even someone that's super technical. I actually have a technical person aligned to me, but I am able to show demos in real life time of how easy it is to use our agents, which I think is going to be top of mind. And then, like I said, easily creating policies to make platform engineering make their lives a lot easier. And then, like I said, the remediation piece was huge, and I'm still hearing that. So I think that's going to continue. And then as far as AWS goes, we're hoping to get on the AI agent marketplace, which is where I think we're going to see a lot of enterprise customers, which is our ideal customer, procure through there using their enterprise discount program. So I think all of these things are going to prove to be true, but I'm very curious to see how the AI marketplace is going to take off and what customers are going to procure through there. But I think you're going to see a lot of enterprises do that.
Yes, absolutely. I think I really like about the policy as code approach in terms of journal, because one of the things I've been hearing from the agent space as well, from the Nirmata specifically, if they saw some of the things being trickled down or compromising the standards of the organization, it can actually inject those policies as well. And it's also, as the AI can learning from it, and sometimes it can actually auto populate the things in front of before actually hitting the cluster or hitting the API server in the Kubernetes. So that's a very advanced piece as well. And I think when you hook those in with the open telemetry, dashboards, or monitoring system, that's where the real magic starts. You go into the dashboard, see the compromising, add policies. As the policies being kicked up, you can remediate those things as well. And as Randy pointing out, I think remediation is I think there might be a future. There's a new conference called, and Richard, me and you might be live streaming the Remediation Con in the 2026.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. That'll be a good one. I'll be up for that.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think it's been naturally, because some people feel like, yes, we are using AI and you're not fixing things up, just giving a hint of it where things can broke. It's not a good thing. It's not an AI. It's not an intelligence. So I think more and more companies will see the benefit of it, having the remediation steps involved in it as well. But Richard, before we end the stream, we have actually one more guest arrive.
We do. Just before you bring him on, I think Mike needs to unfortunately leave us, but we appreciate Mike's time. Thank you very much, Mike, for coming on. Applause to us. We've got all the special effects here and everything, sound effects. So yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate your insights. It's been fantastic to have you on for AWS and somebody who's actually been on. So that was Mike from Scale Factory. Randy, feel free to stay on a little bit longer if you like. Samuel, we're ready to bring on the next.
Yes, 100%.
John
Brooks. Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. How are you doing, John?
I'm good. You?
Yeah, all good. All good. What have you been up to?
Oh, all sorts. But yeah, I was quite interested to join the chat today and catch up on reInvent. I unlike others, didn't go to reInvent, but I've been trying to catch up on the YouTube feeds from Amazon, and just the metadata I downloaded alone bust my contacts window into an AI. I couldn't ingress all of the data that I was getting from it, and that was just the metadata from just the videos from that one event. So it's just, I think Mike was on earlier, and it's just absolutely unbelievable the amount of video content that is put out. And I think if you were at reInvent, you wouldn't be able to consume all of that data.
No,
physically impossible. So yes. Yeah. quite.
We're talking about information overload and fire hoses and stuff like that.
Yeah, I very much picked that up. Yeah, so I was, but that regardless of that, I did pick out things that were particularly keynote to me. There were a number of things, but there was one that really shone out was a guy called Craig Howard, senior principal engineer working on Amazon. Amazon DynamoDB. And it sort of, for me, that was a fascinating masterclass in support, in operational engineering, stuff that I've been working on for years. Found myself triggered by an awful lot of the content as well, and very, very resonated an enormous amount with the materials that Craig brought out there. And he headed his whole thing up with four main things. Four: security, durability, availability, and latency. Those are the things that for him is headlines, And I would have probably come up with something very much the same myself. So a tremendous video that if you can dig that out, just watch that. It's worth taking notes on and digesting, and then watch it again. So. Yeah, I got an awful lot out of that. That was really, for me, I needed to know what happened in November and why it happened, and what lessons learned and things like that. Some of the really fantastic pieces of information. I mean, they obviously this Dynamo thing that we're talking about is just the back end for their database, to their DNS. And they're commonly used to like 500,000 requests per second, but they can easily go up to 151 requests per second for some of their customers. Just unbelievable data throughput, unbelievable.
Cool, John. Before we need you to do an intro as well. But before we do that, I think Saim wants to make a little announcement.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's been wonderful talking with you, Randy. It's been first time you're appearing on the Cloud Therapist and Cloud Native FM. It's been super delight to hear from you as well. So it's been great. So much of appreciation for Randy.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Merry Christmas.
You too.
Oh, where's John goes? Yes, John is here.
John is here. So, John, let's do an intro before we go any further because we've got quite a bit more to catch up on. But
we spoke we spoke a bit ago, didn't we? We met in London at an event. We did down there something called Nightmare Before Coding in the end of October, wasn't it?
Yes.
And since I've been working on something called Minimal Viable Kubernetes, which consumes things like AWS, but mostly in the form of just plain VMs to deliver a hyper-converged, minimalist and minimal viable Kubernetes. So I've been working on that, and I'm pushing out some more softwares and services in and around that. And I'm starting to build a quick start for developers, for students, and I'm reaching out to some people overseas now to see if we can get people in the other continents to Europe, let's say, involved in this, which I'm quite excited about. We'll see how. Watch this space on that one. I don't know.
Cool. Do you get sort of to have you sort of played with things like EKS and so on from AWS at all? What's kind of your take on that?
All of that has been, well, my earliest experience with Kubernetes was self-hosted and VM based on AWS, and that by choice of the then startup in Kubernetes. But everybody else was using EKS, AKS. And Google Compute or whatever. There weren't any of them self-hosting. It wasn't really a thing. But we started out self-hosting early on, and I've been doing that ever since. But I've worked with EKS thereafter by preference of easy deployment of managed Kubernetes. So my only feeling on that really is that when I tried to get into the management plane, as I was used to and accustomed to, you can only, you've only got a limited access to that management plane. So with the EKS as a case in point, you've got a fairly rich interface to get to the management layer to see what's going on, but not necessarily to manage and I suppose really, I mean, managing Kubernetes yourself is no mean feat. And the one thing that if you can hand it off to somebody else, the management plane is something that is a good thing, because when that goes, boy, it goes.
yeah. And what's kind of your take on Kubernetes for this year? Has there been anything interesting for you that's kind of come out and gone? You've kind of gone, ooh, that's a really good one to look at.
Well, I think generally that the whole thing of the complexity of Kubernetes as I think has come home to people, and that they're probably looking for ways out of managing it.
Right.
So I'm finding that people, if they can find a way of reducing that complexity, they will do so. If you can either find a better way of managing it, or even the managed Kubernetes, and hand that over to somebody else, there seems to be a great interest in that. So there's certainly, I think it's a trend I've seen over years, and I often quote like Vercel or any other such backend as a service like that. People will generally go for that as opposed to trying to do it themselves. So what I'm working on is the opposite, is trying to make the managing it yourself affordable and doable. And then because otherwise that knowledge is being lost. So I think that the trends that I'm seeing over time is that people are losing knowledge of how to manage large systems, and that's why I found this keynote, particularly this particular talk about the DNS issues with AWS in November fascinating, because all of this stuff is all to do with knowing what makes the internet work. And to know that, or to know how large systems work, you've got to have done that. And if you've always handed that over to somebody else, then you will eventually your knowledge will atrophy of the cloud and how and the internet and how it works.
Yeah. So I know Saim kind of wanted to come in on something. Let me just kind of sticking to this point about the outage. I mean, I think we said earlier in the live stream, we've kind of covered it a couple of times. So did a talk with Saim on his Cloud Native Wisdom episode, but also on the recent Class A to Play, which I released today. So that, again, we covered it quite a lot in that. But the point that I think we were trying to get to was that trying to, you can make, and people, when the outage kind of everyone was like, oh, you see, we told you so. And, there was a lot of that kind of, sort of from the, LinkedIn influencers and so on. And then immediately the remediation of kind of, how can we get over this? Or how can we fix this? How can we mitigate this risk? Immediately, they were talking about resilience. So they're talking about kind of making your, sort of AWS environment, a VPC, whatever, resilient. Now, I argued that point in terms of the terminology. I don't think resilience is the right terminology to be using in this case, because this failure was so high up in the in the pyramid. No matter how much you make your own sort of part of the AWS world resilient, it would have still been affected by this, because a lot of this stuff was, of what happened was really out of the control of the customers. It's kind of almost the AWS backbone.
It reminds me.
Right.
Yeah, it reminds me of a time in the noughties where I worked on the then sort of growing internet, a large internet service provider at the time, and we had the requirement to move out of a data center and move elsewhere, and everybody was sort of patting themselves on the back that most of the customer service had moved, until we pointed out, or rather it was given to me as the job, the poison chalice of telling the managers that actually we haven't moved DNS.
Yeah.
And it's always, since then, and as long as I've known, the adage has always been, it's always DNS.
Yes. Yes.
And to say that it's never going to go wrong is fantasy. So unless you're running the backbone of the internet, and in this case, AWS, on Azure, Google, all of them, the big three, all of them are, and then others out there as well. We could go on, but there's very few places in the world that manage those things, and at that scale, that hyperscale. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you couldn't really have gotten unless you got your own private DNS, and I can't imagine that that would have completely shielded you from such a significant fabric failure of the internet. And if you're using any connected services with AWS, that's all going to have a huge knock-on effect. Well, it would have had a knock-on effect to everything infrastructure outside of AWS.
Yeah,
I think there's a problem here is going forward is that we're using a lot of the agents. So yes, previously the developers actually been calling the cloud provider APIs. Now the agent is now calling the APIs and spinning up the resources, spinning up incident management. The agent is doing a lot of these capabilities. When the next outage has been happening, we don't have that plan. We don't have a risk assess. Many organization enterprises don't have a risk assessment plan for that, because outages will happen and they continues to be happen. They won't be for a 1 day or a 20 hours. They won't be 2-3 hours. But the after effect of the outage will be far more worse than what we're expecting, what been hearing, what's been seeing these days. So, because remember,
the ripples of the October events really are probably even still being felt by some today. It's going to have, as you say, you rightly say, it's a cascade. Something at that level causes a cascade of issues throughout, not just the service provision, but then everybody else that is using that. That could have led to all manner of data corruption, perhaps, or data rollbacks and all sorts of things could have taken place.
Yes, and my worry is that it's like right now, if the agent is being putting up all of the code, like Claude Code or Gemini is putting all of the code for the agent, the problem is that we recently hear the Ingress Nginx is being deprecated. Let's say we have pulled the effort that in March 10, finally the Ingress Nginx Ingress is being deprecated. So we remove all the instances from our code where the annotation of Nginx Ingress is being applied. But imagine a scenario after some time, some developer call a Claude Code to build up an ingress for me, and then don't ingress and Nginx appearance again. So that is a problem. Like we need, like that's another problem. Like yes, might be not the cascade effect of the AWS, but the cascade effect of the Kubernetes ecosystem in itself that has been once again polluting my code. So we don't have policies or standard procedures of which code the agent model call, which APIs they call. We don't do this. There's a huge, insane amount of code being there in the LLM. So I think that's another worry for a lot of the organization. I've seen people talking about it.
The whole thing with Kubernetes is that at certain levels it gives us complete abstraction from ingress, be it Traefik or Nginx or whatever, Apache even. There's lots of different and you're just talking ultimately through an API. But then I suppose that really that really bodes for everything that we know today. We're even talking to APIs to talk to LLMs, and so forth. So we're living in a sea of APIs, aren't we? So we're abstracting ourselves further and further away from the metal all of the time.
Yes, absolutely. And I think yes, absolutely. And I think like one other thing I've seen people is now talking about is like developers and the operation engineer is kind of a fighting for decades. Like what been developed in their local machine is not been working in the production setup. Luckily, we have container and Kubernetes came along, and now we have a resilient system with things working on the same way. But now the people are worrying about that the infrastructure and the platform engineer composes their own agent model, and the developer has their own agent model. How do they communicate with each other? What will be the criteria talking with each other?
I'm finding that there are splinters and schisms within this story as well, where I'm seeing more engineers and developers sort of say, well, I don't do containers, I don't like them for whatever reason, and they'll start using a completely different environment to code their applications in, and then expect that code to work within a production environment, which is generally container driven and probably running on Linux, for instance, as a typically running on some form of Linux that it is up to that point never been deployed on. So I thought that naively, when containers started, when I started getting involved with them around about the tens, that everybody would embrace this idea, but I don't think over time that is necessarily the case, because it requires that you understand something about the underlying operating system, and you understand something about packaging of applications and the operating system requirements. Just basics of systems administration are encoded in things like containers now, and as infrastructure as code and so forth. And we've now got this. And we're going back to this API thing. Everything is now some form of API between us and the environment. And that level of abstraction is potentially going to cause us issues further down the road.
Yes, absolutely. I think some people like to call it, there's an advantage for the APIs, because now some people do not see Kubernetes as a management of the container. They see Kubernetes as a universal API for interacting with the cloud. And I think that's a very bright beauty of the Kubernetes in itself. But we do not actually live in a world where we do not have experience of living in a world where agents interacting on our behalf of doing something. Because remember, we actually encapsulate the APIs and wrap them under the Terraform module of the provider. But if the agent call an API, we don't need any wrapper. I don't need to figure out the way how the API is being called by the agent. It's a machine. It's not a human. Why do I wrap that API logic inside another module? So that's another debate.
I mean, the upside of that for me is to a degree that models tend to understand APIs more quickly than we do. So that there's a good side. It's a glass half full and a glass half full empty, and where sort of MCPs and things like that can offer an API that is of a standard RESTful composition. A large language model can very quickly find its way around it, whereas a human like you or I will have to fumble and fiddle sometimes with gets and posts and puts and so on, and we wouldn't. We'll have to, because we're not doing it all of the time. We've always got to do some kind of mental arithmetic to remember how to authenticate to the darn thing, let alone to actually interact with it. Whereas an LLM is already pre-trained with all of that. It sees something standard and just gets on with it. But my biggest issue with that is that, as you say, they're using things like K8s as an API. as it were, to manage workflows is good. But we're losing. Often, folks will have lost sight, and particularly when you go into pure web services, of which there are a plethora in AWS and Azure, and so forth. Even setting up a database, running a database, administering it, and making it highly available are things that we haven't got a clue of how to do anymore. We're losing that knowledge.
Yeah, and certainly I think around this sort of what Saim was saying about sort of APIs, the agents are, they'll be connecting to MCP. MCP server is the one that actually will do the integration, for agents going forward. And the idea is that because you're going through that layer, the agents don't necessarily need to have their own, individual integrations or be trained to do that. The MCP kind of acts as that sort of, aggregator or go-between in order for them to go and take an action on our behalf, whether it's to respond to an email or book us a flight or whatever it is going to be, going forward in the future. That's kind of the type of architecture. Just going back, John, to what we were saying before. So yeah, I saw a lot of kind of people talking about resiliency and things like that, where actually, it's more around high availability. That's kind of really the right term to be using. The resilience is kind of making your existing system resilient. And as we said, if even if you do that, if something is the failure is beyond your control, you're still in trouble anyway. It's still going to go down. Resilience system's not going to work.
And there's always that nth nine which we can't afford. And the AWS one is a case in point, because when you look at how often such failures occur, and the race condition that they encountered was a sort of a 1 in a million event, where something completely and totally unexpected in a quite simple model took place. So that the thing that came out to me about all of that was that the headline, so to speak, was that keep things simple if you want them to be available and reliable. But that also means that that they're less likely to go wrong, and therefore more difficult to prepare for such failures, because we're dealing with such obtuse edge cases in which it's very difficult to fathom and to plan for something that is highly unlikely to happen. But then, sort of going back to the old adage is, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. Perhaps we should have.
One particular talk I picked up on from reInvent was called Global Resilient Apps, your guide to multi-availability zones / region architecture. And I thought that was probably would have been useful a couple of months ago, just before the outage, not after the fact. Yes. I think that was the only, or the nearest that AWS got in reInvent to actually apologizing.
Well, that's
kind
right.
Of an apology without saying an apology. So,
yeah, I mean, and I think as well, it was perhaps a little bit of that, what I alluded to earlier, that something that is so, it's almost considered to be always on. It's never failed. So why move it out of the one region where it started to fail? It's possible that there could have been a little bit of that going on, and that could have been moved somewhere else or replicated somewhere else.
Yeah, and most organizations tend to do an availability zone, high availability on AZs, not on on availability zones, not on regions. But I think that's clearly something that people may have to re-examine right now.
Yes.
Richard and John, I just making a joke here is that I believe far away in a galaxy, there is a new service in every region they have added it. Like, oh, here's a button, click on it, and do a blue-green deployment. Just break down it, see how your apps operate, and then see the results out of it as well. Because I think, as me and Richard's talking about, resilience was actually all the time as well. Because he's rightly pointed out, if something is down in AWS, what should I do? that's a simple problem. Even if the developers working inside the companies, they say, "Oh, what should I do? It's AWS down. What should I do?" Like, is the game gone? Like,
well, yeah, I mean,
nothing
it's that kind of a core failure, isn't it? This one, it's not something that maybe you would, think about, and certainly as part of your risk assessment, maybe it's not something that you would necessarily consider. But if you do have, business services that are really that critical, I mean, if they're down for like milliseconds, as in the financial sector, you're losing millions of dollars, then you do have to do this one as well about being multi-regioned, and having high availability for multi-regions.
And again, it's a cost-benefit analysis, isn't it? Whereby how many nines can you afford? Well, how many can you afford to lose? I mean, the sort of current, is it 5 or 6 nines equates to so many minutes a year. Now, if you're a Rolls-Royce jet engine, can you afford to fail for 20 minutes a year? And the answer is probably not. You need 100% availability throughout that year, and you wouldn't want to be on that airplane when it was in its downtime.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, fantastic. All right, okay, John. Well, we appreciate you coming on. I love talking, kind of, catching up with you on a lot of these things. I think we see a lot of stuff eye to eye on these sorts of things. So really do appreciate you doing that. I think we've dropped in the comments where people can get MVK, minimal viable Kubernetes. We'll drop some more. Here we go. It's on the screen. See, Saim's got it under control. I don't have to worry about anything. So yeah, we appreciate you coming on. Let's see what we do with you in 2026. I need to have that Zoom call with you before Christmas, hopefully. So I'll try and catch up with you next week on that. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing you again in 2026.
Yeah, likewise. It's been a gas this year. We've spoken, I think, twice on your some of your streams, and the guests that you have are very, very interesting, and it's been super fun to take part. So thanks both.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. And again, it was I think it was just useful having you and sort of getting your insights and inputs on things. I think it's always nice to have a different perspective on things as well. So that's always cool. And I appreciate that about you.
Well, I've always had a different perspective.
That's what we like. We always love that, right? Saim and I always, disagreeing with everything that people announce and puts out, and I think that's the best way to be. It's the independent approach. That I don't like the sort of the mainstream sort of media kind of talking about well, we told you it was a single point of failure, and just make it resilient and you'll be fine. No, that's not going to help in this case.
Unfortunately, the ones that actually have the misfortune of working on the tech itself have to make that happen, and the reality is often very different to the perception. So.
Yeah, I did joke on, somebody put out a post recently, and I did joke about the multi-region sort of thing, because again, people were saying make it resilient. It's like, no, it's not resilient. It's actually high availability is what you need, not resiliency, because you can make a system resilient, but as we found in this case, it's not going to help. But you need high availability, so you can fail over somewhere else and fail back. And in this case, as per AWS's own talk at reInvent, it needs to be in a different region. Not even availability zones can save you. But yeah, the joke I was making was I said the CEO calls in the CIO and CTO in regards to the outage. The CIO and the CTO tell the CEO how much is going to cost to be to be multi-region. The CEO takes that to the CFO, and the CFO says, "Forget it."
Yes.
Yes.
And that's basically the conversation that
Yeah.
has gone around all around the world when it comes to these
Yeah.
risk mitigations. So there you go.
And
I
so-
remember, but John, Richard made a very good analogy here as well. We haven't actually did it
Oh, yeah.
completely well, but we can call it as well. So, Richard, your time. You have to do it because we haven't.
If I can remember the analogy now, so I said that many weeks ago. So the point, the thing I actually, and I mentioned this to Paul Bevan on our Class State to Play, the October episode, which came out today as well. So we actually went back and forth on this a little bit longer. And my concern was, why did the AWS services fail for AWS? I can appreciate them going down for me as being in my VPC and the next VPC and so on. Now we can't DNS, we can't go to the outside world. We can maybe talk east-west, but not north-south anymore. So that's kind of the failure that we saw with the DNS enactors. But why did other AWS services fail for AWS, is my understanding from their description. I would have thought that them communicating with their own services would be through a backbone. They would not be going through the same network as their customer network, surely.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think
So that was a real mystery, and I was just thinking, maybe I'm just too stupid not to understand the architecture.
I don't know. I'm guessing, and I think we can only guess at this because we can't really know because we're not inside that infrastructure. But I would like to make a guess that it's historical, that everything was built around that particular piece of functionality always being there and being particularly in the one sort of availability zone or wherever. Yeah. And it's never failed, and we've just forgot about it. And as time has gone on, it's come back to bite us.
Well, North Virginia, I think, wasn't that their first region, I believe?
Yeah, exactly that. So
the oldest region.
It's like the yellow brick road. It leads to the one place. So,
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, John, thank you very much for your time again. Wishing you a happy Christmas. I'll catch up with you prior to Christmas, hopefully. Yeah. Take care, and we'll catch up with you soon, mate. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Thanks, both.
All right. So,
Richard, we have.
It's back to us too. It's back to us.
It's absolutely back to
dynamic
us.
duo.
Yes, absolutely. So, Richard, I think I need some verdict from you because we have some final hours of the live stream, because I don't we are not doing anything live stream until 2026. So we need some rest. We need some family time. We need to drink some water. Oh my God.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Yes, I mean, just to close out on reInvent, really, and our recall, as we called it, recall live stream. So yeah, I mentioned, I think, the financials that sort of came out earlier. So won't go through those. So it was just on the keynotes again. Like I said, I found Werner Vogel's quite forgettable, to be honest with you. It wasn't kind of a huge amount sort of in there. But Matt Garman's sort of presentation, he was talking about, AWS having the world's largest private network, increased over 50% in the last 12 months. If you want to lay it down, it's to the moon and back 11 times from their own from their sort of network cabling that they have. Other announcements that were interesting to me was Trainium 3. So this is being used by Anthropic on Claude 3. They have also a project called Rainier, Rainier, which Matt Garman talked about. So this uses the AWS Elastic Fabric Architecture, network architecture, the EFA network architecture, as they call it. And this is actually being used by Anthropic for, training sort of future versions of Claude. There was quite a focus on partners, so the likes of IBM, Rackspace, Nutanix, I think were mentioned as well. That I failed to see where Nutanix fits into AWS's ecosystem, but there you go. Startups were also announced as well, so there was a number of sort of startups that came on, and they were talking about customizing sound with sound separation sort of technology that they're using on Bedrock and various other things. So platforms such as Writer was mentioned. I actually saw Writer at the Gen AI conference back in April of this year that I attended in London. So Audio Shape is a noise isolation, isolating music, or just conversations as well. Now, I was a little bit worried about this one because they said we can not only isolate music, which is fine for kind of headphones, and you can kind of put it in your headphones and your earbuds and whatever, and that's fine. It can kind of isolate the music for you. And there is, to be honest, kind of other versions of that technology already. But the one that intrigued me and worried me slightly was when the presenter from Audio Shape said, or we can isolate music, or just the conversations of people in the background. And I thought, hang on, is that I thought, why do you want to isolate and grab other people's conversations that are happening around you? And I thought, who would be interested in an application like that? And then I thought, I know, the NSA, the CIA, and the FBI would really love that. You can imagine their spies kind of in a Russian embassy dinner or something and having these noise isolation stuff, but actually they're not isolated. They're actually picking up all the conversations around them. So that was an Audio Shape. Yeah, I'm not sure that was the best way to announce your products, but there you go. So that was interesting. Now, again, I mentioned earlier about moving away from AI assistants, so this kind of augmentation assistance sort of layer of AI to kind of going more towards AI agents, which I think is the sober thing to do. Let's not kind of talk about agentic AI and stuff like that, because that's just nowhere near where we are at the moment. But around that, Matt Garman was saying this is kind of where around sort of AI agents where enterprises will see the most value. I think that's been missing so far from Gen AI. And then he talked about kind of what would you need the AI agents for? So things like AI or what what do AI agents actually need? And obviously that positioning themselves as AWS to be the provider of the resources that are required for you to build AI agents and develop AI agents. So everything from AI infrastructure, inference platforms, data, tools to build AI agents, of course, and so on. All of those are kind of part of AWS's infrastructure. He also mentioned that they've been partners with AWS for 15 years. I guess in that kind of HPC space, they have been doing that. Obviously now a lot more where they are, sort of today. And again, he talked about kind of having huge experience of running GPUs. Yeah, and like I said, in HPC workloads, but not necessarily in AI workloads. That's a different sort of thing. But another point that he mentioned was the attention to detail. So he was saying about bug fixing BIOSes of GPUs to avoid GPU reboots. And he said AWS, I think he said they were unique in that area, whereas other vendors just accept that GPUs will reboot, so we just have to repopulate the workload to them when they come back online. Whereas he said no, AWS spends a lot of time fixing the BIOS bugs and so on, so that GPUs or GPU firmware doesn't cause the GPU to crash and reboot and things like that. So that was kind of a something that he was talking about. And then he mentioned OpenAI, and again, OpenAI kind of working and scaling to tens of millions of CPUs for agentic AI applications and ChatGPT models. So I think OpenAI, they did do a deal with OpenAI recently, I believe. They're again, OpenAI is kind of being part of their ecosystem. Now, the biggest announcement, this is really important, was around AWS AI factories. Now, AI factories is the ability to take and deploy a whole AI infrastructure in your own data center. So this is fully AWS. It runs all of the AWS services that you need, all the ones that you are used to and enjoy using right now in AWS's cloud. You can take all of that and you can put it on this presumably big rack or bunch of racks or whatever it is, and wheel it all into your own data center. And it's fully acts as, well, he said essentially it acts as your own region, as your own local region of AWS. It can operate exclusively. It's private to your organization, and is sovereign. Most importantly, the data has digital sovereignty. So this is a huge announcement, and I saw a couple of articles on it almost immediately pop up saying this is the end of, and the final nail in the coffin of the traditional data center vendors, the HPEs, the Dells, and Lenovo's, of the world, because they've been desperately trying to combine their sort of server technologies, SANs, and whatever else with the GPUs, with the NVIDIA GPUs, and saying, oh, look, we can now, we now have bundles of GPUs, so please buy our hardware to do your training and your inference and what have you to their customers. But the problem with the traditional data center vendors is that they lack an ecosystem. Even if you drop in all the NVIDIA CUDA and everything else into that space, it's still not enough. They don't have the they lack the kind of the PaaS layer that AWS can give you, the database as a service, the IAM, all of that's kind of pre-built. Now, with AI factories, AWS is saying we can wheel that into your own data center. We can bring it into your own data, that whole thing preloaded, ready to go, and we can just wheel it into your data center. And you use the same technology, use the same codes, the same code that you've written in AWS. You use the same, Terraform scripts, whatever else you use to, or CloudFormation stuff that you build stuff in the AWS cloud. Now you can build it in this AI factories platform that we're going to wheel into your data center. So I think that's a huge advantage and a real game changer really for AWS. And obviously they're responding to people talking about sovereignty and lock-in, the lock-in and stuff like that. But this AWS AI factories is a huge
This is interesting, Richard, because I think in the Microsoft Ignite, not the same thing, but the Azure introducing something similar in philosophy. Back in the days, you have Azure Arc. What Arc do is like they migrate your cloud. They can run stuff from Azure to different clouds and get back customer from somewhere into the Azure system as well. So they wrote some of the MCP server for that, for the full migration of their apps and infrastructure as well. So we can typically imagine, because where me and you quite juggling a lot on some of the off topic, it's like, yes, AI is great, we're doing some great progress, but what is a migration? How the customer migrate from somewhere to some new system? So I think this is going to be a very continuously exciting space in 2026, being able to see how AI can figure it out, the stuff, and move them to the places where it make more sense for them to be there. So it's been good. I think we far away in a galaxy I believe Google is also doing the same thing as well.
Well,
So
hopefully, the other exciting one that I found was the other really exciting announcement was Amazon Nova Forge. So
yes.
Amazon Nova Forge is essentially the idea is that when we train models, they have the ability to they have a sort of a general data set that you train them on, kind of a world data set, as I would call it, and they kind of have a very general knowledge. And then you have to kind of fine tune and rag and whatever the you have to do in order to kind of customize them to what you want. Now, trying to apply that to corporate data, to enterprise data, to organizational data is very difficult to do, apparently. And I've seen kind of some experience of that, of just using Copilot, at work. It can struggle with kind of finding you the right data and understanding your business. So it's kind of missing the context, in other words. Now, the idea with Nova Forge is that as the model is being trained, is going to be trained also on your corporate data. So when it actually kicks off, it will be, when it starts working in your business, in your environment, it's immediately aware of your business. So it has the context that it needs in order to operate within your business. And therefore, it's more useful, it's more responsive, it's more detailed, it's more capable in terms of delivering things that are unique to your corporate data, to your business data. Whereas, otherwise you're kind of having to train a general model and you have to give it lots of background and RAG and, RAG techniques and maybe fine tuning or whatever else that needs to happen. I'm not an expert on that, but that's kind of essentially what you have to do. And that's what we're kind of seeing, that, some people are talking about things like Copilot not being as successful as it was expected to be with corporate data. It was kind of with public stuff, it's fine. It's kind of holding its own. But when it comes to corporate data, it's a different story. So Nova Forge is going to be, I think, something interesting. Now, we talked about Project Rainier, which is kind of a data center campus. That's Anthropic. Claude is using that with Trainium and so on. The numbers on that, by the way, are just mega. It's 30 data centers, 1.1 gigawatts of power, and it's a multi-campus cluster. That's how they're running the Rainier project for Anthropic's Claude. And again, that uses Trainium processors. There were also other announcements of things like Mistral 2 had 2 new models, so a large and 3 sort of mini Strals, as they call them, with open weights. So that was an interesting announcement from Mistral. The Nova embeddings is a multimodal embeddings feature, which was again announced as a new release for AWS. So you have things like Nova 2 Lite, which is for reasoning, Nova 2 Pro, which was in preview, and that's kind of for more complex type of activity, and Nova 2 Sonic, which is obviously for speech applications and things like that. Nova 2 Omni, which is a multimodal reasoning, so that's text, audio, and video input, and then you get text and audio output. So it's not a diffusion model, but it's kind of a no video. So you won't get any video output, but you do get text and audio output out of that. And there was a number of other things. I was not going to be able to do it all justice. We'll drop some links in the description maybe for folks to go and have a look at all the stuff there. But yeah, I think those were kind of the main things for me. So definitely AI factories, definitely Nova Forge, definitely Nova embeddings and the new Nova models as well. Because I mean, Bedrock was almost not talked about at all, because I think when AWS drop these names, or they're not kind of mentioned as much in reInvent, it kind of just means that they've really reached a very good maturity level, on those technologies. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot in there. I mentioned at the beginning that, it's a lot of these vendors kind of, and the hyperscalers follow that sort of Intel TikTok model, So one year they announce improvements. I think that's the tick in Intel's sort of analogy, and then the next year it's kind of actually new stuff, which is the talk in Intel's analogy. And I kind of see 2025 as a tick year for a lot of these vendors. They're kind of just building onto what they announced last year. So not kind of a lot of exciting new stuff, but a kind of a build up, a ramp up of new features on stuff that they actually announced last year. And I guess to a large degree, AWS reInvent for this year was the same as well.
Yes, absolutely. So Richard, we are in 150 minutes now for the live streaming. So I think from all of the reviews you have been giving, I believe that is my prediction. Going into 2026, there are more startup around AWS agent frontier models. Specifically, when you find a new startup is being a wrapper around some of the AWS DevOps agent or incident management and giving more user-friendly CLI or some sort of the thing as well. And on the bigger things, I believe I wish to have more and more cloud provider giving us way to be migrate into the cloud, into the newer ways, because I know I work with some of the banks. They've been very old. Some of the retail shops, they have been very old. They literally doesn't know what the hell is container, and what we're talking about here is beyond their imagination. So we are living in a Milky Way galaxy, and there might be in a newer galaxy where nothing has been going on unless there are some virtual machine they need to spin up. So I think it's good to hear some news. I think Richard might be going into 2026. We have to give some dedicated time in a monthly basis to some roundup news for the AWS services as well. I think we should spin up a new segment specifically for the AWS news, because that's where we see a lot of the confusion going on in the industry as well. So there's much stuff going on, Richard. So we need to pick our muscles for that as well, because and specifically we are recording some of the episode on Nova Forge as well. Nova AWS DevOps agent. We need to try to find some people from the AWS who need to talk about those things as well. It's harder to find those people, but we try our best. That's the game here as well.
Yes, definitely.
So Richard, give us, because this is our 7th or 8th live stream, and I think if I calculated all of the time we spent on the stream, I think it's more than 19 plus hours.
Wow.
That's full day of live stream, close
That's
to
cool.
full days.
That's
yes.
cool.
Richard, now it's a full, give us a conclusion in a couple of seconds, and then we round off our year in review stream. So give us a very quick from the beginning of the stream. I think we started the first stream for the open state of open source, SUCON 2025. Yeah. That's where we pick up the debate. We did AWS Summit London. That's a great addition we added for our viewers. The smaller version of the AWS is also important compared to the reInvent as well. We did KubeCon London. We did PlatformCon. Oh my word. We did KubeCon Atlanta. We did reInvent as well. I think I'm missing a few of those as well. But those are the big ones. In this year, we started Code to Culture Platform Engineering. There's a 5th episode we'll be recording soon. So the full series coming up in next year. That's hell of a news. Now, what is I'm trying to aiming for is like, I will give Richard Simon authority to be a director, and I will be the feed reporter for the 2026. So number one, that's the game plan as well. Also, I think Richard actually hosted Cloud State of Play for so many episodes. In terms of what I have counted down, I might be wrong here, but there are 13 or 14 episodes, the podcast Richard Simon added in this YouTube channel. Yeah. A similar mine added on the Cloud Native FM, 15 Cloud Native Wisdom episode, 4 live stream this year. And I think this time I did some good job. 22 podcasts actually in a 1 year. So
Yeah.
somebody give me an award for that. I know everybody know who do the content editing how tough it is. Like, and Richard, I can tell you there's 3 more I need to host before the end of the year. So 25
Right.
podcasts in 1 year. So I'm setting a standard a bit high for the rest of the year as well. So Richard, first year, give us in a 1 minute a key summary of what happened in 2025, what we learned, and what we can predict to happen in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think, technology wise, um, we have made, I think, some steps forward, some strides forward, but not as many as I maybe expected. There's been a lot of kind of shuffling of feet, but still remaining in your kind of position. It's been a little bit like that on the Gen AI, the LLM sort of space. There's been a few tricks that people have played, but maybe scaling things to make it kind of bigger and faster and more responsive. Reasoning has come in, memory has come in. I think those have been useful features, but not a huge leap forward in terms of kind of models getting smarter, so to speak. There's been some interesting reports from Anthropic around models and kind of their behavior, so to speak, as well. So a lot of that kind of focus there. I think cloud in general, apart from some of the recent unfortunate outages, and it's not just AWS, it's also been Azure a week later, Cloudflare week after that, and Cloudflare again. I think Cloudflare was maybe going for the prize or something of being the most down platform or something like that for 2025, trying to beat Microsoft and Amazon to the prize. So yeah, those have not necessarily helped. And I don't think many things have really moved a great deal forward. Maybe you and I have kind of understood platform engineering a little bit more for this year. I still maintain it's a shift left. Nobody calls it a shift left, but it's essentially a shift left, just like we did with DevSecOps and DevOps itself with Agile and things like that in the last sort of decade or so. So I'd like to see a little bit more kind of honesty really around that. In terms of conferences, I think it's getting a bit crazy. We've live streamed on so many. We tried some new ones this year. So we tried things like Platform Con, for example, as a live stream. But we also made some good calls on not to live stream certain events as well, to cover them and do some interviews, yes, but not to actually live stream from those conferences. And it's always hard because if we've not been to them before, it's quite difficult to judge whether whether we can live stream. Is there enough for us to cover in a live stream, for example. So again, maybe I won't mention any names, but I think we need to look at what that looks like for us in 2026. Maybe be a little bit more selective with them, but also try out some other ones that are new that we can, if we're invited to them, we'll see. I mean, I've attended as press and media for this year, all of these conferences, and I'm grateful to the organizers for inviting me to be there as part of the press to actually cover their events, and that's been great. And that's really the main reason why I've been able to, kind of do the live streams with you, because people have waived their fees. They said, okay, you don't have to pay the ticket. Just if you turn up, then cover us and do some interviews and do a live stream, whatever. And and that's kind of been the focus for me. But I have learned a huge amount. I've learned two things actually. I've learned from people that I speak to and met some new people like John For example, with MVK, really good conversation with him, and got on almost straight away, actually, in terms of our conversation and the interview that I did with him, which, by the way, is not out yet. That will be out at some point when I get around to getting the content out on my channel. But also, it's actually taught me that, a number of things that I was thinking about and predicting have actually come to pass. They've actually come and they've actually happened. They've occurred, which is great. So things like, talking about having an AI agents registry. Now, nobody's calling it that specifically, and we have a service registry for sort of cloud native, but an AI native, I'd like to see a sort of an AI agents registry. And there has been some announcements around that. So, for example, GitLab, I think, announced something similar to that at their Epic conference, which I attended as well. So that's been really, really good to see that kind of, requests and thinking coming to fruition. And other people thinking the same way. And actually, even, with Kyverno, they're kind of talking about that sort of policy engine around AI agents and so on. It's not exactly a registry, because I would have thought that a registry is probably the most logical, simple thing that you need. Get an agent to register with your AI agent registry. If it's not registered, it's not allowed to execute any code. So the policy engine would then stop it from executing any code at all, executing any actions in your cloud environment. If it's registered and it has the right keys and it can be verified, great, it can be used. But if it's not, then it's not allowed. Very simple. So I want to see a lot more of that sort of, and I think we'll naturally see that happen next year as people use more agents in their environment. And I think that's that's naturally going to happen. I believe for 2026
Yes,
and beyond. So yeah, and then another highlight for me was actually meeting Kelsey Hightower, not once but twice. So I met him once at KubeCon London when he lost his voice. So I gave him my, I don't know if you can see that, my lozenges. So I gave him my lozenges when he was at KubeCon London. And also proud that KubeCon London actually broke the attendance record. 13,000 or 13,000 and a half people attended, or whatever it was. So huge, a huge turnout for that, as it was for AWS Summit, as you mentioned as well, in London. So that was really good. And then I met Kelsey Hightower again at Civo Navigate. So Civo actually kindly invited me to their Navigate event a few months ago. And I met him, and actually I ended up sitting next to him and having dinner. We had a really interesting conversation as well about careers and Kubernetes, of course, and stuff like that. So that was quite cool doing that. And yeah, and I mean, other highlights for me included, being at the Gartner event. There was a lot of affirmation again for me in terms of some of the thinking I had. Gartner was also thinking the same. I mentioned one of those around observability on this live stream. So observability having to move to a kind of a remediation sort of phase, as well as bringing in Gen AI Ops, as I'm calling it. So actually having Gen AI as part of sort of its AI Ops approach, so we can talk to the platform and and query our logs and traces and things like that using natural language. I think that's going to be a huge breakthrough, which the original kind of traditional AI Ops is not able to do. So I'd love to see that, the Dynatraces, Datadogs of the world, taking that up next year. I think that would be really, really cool to see that happen. Yeah, I think those are kind of the main things. There's lots more to mention. There's a lot more. I've been very proud of the videos that I put out, the talks that I've done on my channel for this year. Really fantastic. I think that we got together on the Code to Culture series, and we worked very hard to curate both the guests and the topics as well around platform engineering. It's been quite difficult because when I first looked at it, I thought, what platform engineering? What can we talk about for 6 episodes? I mean, it can't be that much, surely. But then it's like, oh, actually, no, there is a lot to talk about. Hang on. So yeah, so that was good to do. Kind of putting that script, the scripts for that, and the idea for that, I think together was great. And I appreciate you sort of supporting, in that and taking on, 3 episodes, and I take on 3 episodes. As Saim said, there's 2 more to go, guys. So we'll maybe get at least 1 before Christmas if we can, just depending on people's availability. But if not, we'll continue the series into 2026, early 2026, and then we'll have playlists available for everybody, so that people can go to both our channels and be able to get on the playlists and watch all 6 episodes from both channels, which I think is great. There's lots more content that I need to get out of the door. I've taken far too long on Cloud State to Play October episode, mainly because it was a special episode that I recorded, as I said, in a professional studio. So it looks really cool. If you haven't seen that episode, go and check it out. We talk about AWS outage in that episode as well with Paul Bevan. So really good episode. We had lots of fun at the studio recording that. So that was great experience for me. And yeah, I've got the November episode to come out. We've done a Christmas special as well with Sarah Poland. So Sarah's joining us on the Christmas special, Cloud State to Play. So we had lots of fun on that as well. And then hopefully the December one, hopefully this side of Christmas, not the other side of Christmas, for the December episode of Cloud State to Play. And yeah, lots of more of the events coverage that I've done earlier this year. So apart from the live streams, I did also lots of interviews with vendors at these events, and also individuals that were presenting keynotes and things like that at the events as well. So I think it's been, a very busy year. I can't believe we're actually towards the end already. It was only the other day when I was at SUCON talking to Cheryl Hung and people like that. So and KubeCon as well in London, which was a major highlight for me. That was quite cool. So that's it, I think, for me.
Yes, absolutely. I think going forward in 2026, what we try to keep focusing on being able to add people who actually really done. We need to actually think like AI, DevOps, platform engineering in particular. How are we seeing the things community is being more vocal about it? Are those implementing in a production or hard places? So that's the analogy. That's a game plan for the 2026. And this year, luckily, we able to find those people who work inside the companies for the trend we're seeing every day on the internet. So that's new, for being able to see what they have been developing, how the solution has been imposed, what are the AWS services they have been using, how Kubernetes cluster have been spinning up. So those are the natural creation for them as well. So I think
sorry to interrupt you, by the way, just a couple of points. So we didn't do the analogy that you wanted. I completely drifted away from the AWS network thing that we were talking about. Maybe I'll just come back to that and just mention that towards the end. But I think platform engineering's, I think it's very lucky. I think it's very fortunate in terms of what it is as a movement, or as a principle or framework, whatever you want to kind of call it, and that it's building on top of existing solutions and success. And then the other thing which I think makes it even more fortunate, is the fact that people may already be doing platform engineering. They're just not aware that it's platform engineering. And I have highlighted that a number of times, so people haven't argued against that point. So I think that's actually happening. People may be doing platform engineering, they're just not calling it platform engineering at the moment.
Yes.
Sorry, go on.
Yes, and luckily, I think for the viewers, I think this year we actually make AI dev platform engineering, all those strands who actually been really the focus of 2025 has been discussed on both of these YouTube channels as well. So that's what we're trying to focus in 2024 as well. I think in terms of the theme line, what we actually draw plans in 2024, I think we're able to we may mark
26.
those. Yes.
26. Not
Yes,
24.
absolutely. Yes. Well, I'm saying like what we planned in 2024.
Oh,
we
sorry.
somehow,
Yeah.
we somehow executed in 2025. I think we
Yeah.
never 10 out of 9 or 10 out of 8, but we still do a good job of
Yes.
executing those plan as well.
I think for me, 25 has happened so quickly. I've not had time to really do some of the things I wanted to do on the channel. The only thing I maintained from 24 was a regular release schedule. So almost once a week. It's not quite once a week in terms of my
But
releases.
like to be
on my
honest with
channel.
you, the 2025 is a chaos chaos year for everyone, because I remember when the year started, the cloud opus model is 2.3 or 2.4, I believe. And remember, it's 4.5 opus model from the cloud. I think the amount of progression happened in 2025 in the AI place. I think there's no other comparison to that. It's been
No,
skyrocketing.
no, I absolutely
Even
agree. I
though
think
as we speaking on this on this live stream, the garlic model is out from the chat GPT, and they're planning to announce one more before the end of the year, and Anthropic is doing the same thing. So it's a very crazy year, and I don't want a same year to be happen in 2026. I don't want anybody dropping all of the fancy models and we keep investigating those. I want these stuff to be incorporated. They solve some of the problem enterprises have, and they actually adopt in the organization that can solve the developer's pain point, because the developer at the end of the day are the most consumer of all these things, and they actually been hitting their head on the wall, because this keeping up with all of these spaces is not an easy, it's not a fruitful things. Not all people in the world are nerdy like me and you. They don't have they want to spend time watching Formula One or Manchester United versus Real Madrid game. So they have some other things to be done in the life.
Yeah,
So
no,
I think
it is a it's I mean, I think my point earlier about not having made a lot of progress, I think is valid, because it's just kind of seems to be about benchmarking and who's faster and who's more responsive and things like that. And I don't know if that's kind of where we really want to be going in 2026 as well. You're quite right in regards.
Yes,
to
I
that.
don't want to be a chaos engineer. Chaos year.
Another chaos year, yeah. So the analogy you wanted me to mention, was that the school bus analogy?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
That's where we.
Yeah. So a little bit of context for the folks watching this. I think we were talking about the AWS outage, and I mentioned it to John, but I mentioned kind of the official version of it. But the point was, we were saying about the AWS running its own services on the same network as customers do. So we talked about, is there no backbone? Does AWS not have a backbone to run things from its side and not from the customer side, and kind of has to go around all that way out to come in from the customer side to do its services? And like I said, I could be 100% wrong. So if anybody's out there who knows AWS architecture much better than me, please drop us something in the comments and say, go and read this, Richard, and I will go and read it and eat my words. More than happy to do that. But point being was that the analogy was, it's a bit like you have one school bus, but before you go and pick up everybody else's children, you drop your children off to school with that school bus. However, if on that journey the school bus has a problem and it breaks down or something, none of the children that you're supposed to be picking up can be picked up. And that's kind of the analogy of what it looked like, with this DNS failure, and that AWS is working on the same network as everybody else. I don't do you not have a backbone for your network, for your own services? It was strange.
Absolutely. It's totally agree with you, because I think there's a super analogy, because I think that at the end of the day, amount of the customers using the AWS services, and if that's happened again, it is insane. It's insane. I think me and you should create a next year outage con on this YouTube channel. Amount of the views that can.
You know what? With the Christmas special episode, we've actually done the cloud winners and losers and the outage of the year list as well. So we've, when that comes out, or if you're watching this later, go and check that out. It's on the channel. We've covered quite a bit of that in the Christmas special.
Awesome, Richard. So unfortunately, we have to stop here. I really enjoy all the things we've done, and hopefully our plan will be executed for the 2026. So with that, I'm wishing everyone a happy new year for Cloud Native FM and Cloud Therapist viewers as well. And Richard, any final wishes for our viewers?
Yeah, just Merry Christmas. Hope you have a good break over Christmas period. Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks for your support.